Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 323, and we have Kunal back in the garage here. Turn your volume down, audience, please. Rookies. Good to see everyone. Including you, Mike. Welcome. You're on that side of the camera, so you don't know what's going on, so it's fair. We're doing it tonight. We're going to get into the cigar, but we're doing it. We're doing the bottle. Traveler whiskey. I'm curious to see how many people tune in. When they hear that, they might tune out. There's a lot of, I think, stigma with this bottle.
Yeah.
We've talked about it on previous episodes just in passing, but we have not had it on yet. So Nate and I decided, let's do it. See what happens. And so, yeah, we're going to have the Aganorsa Leaf Anniversario Connecticut tonight as well. We've done the other two, the Corojo and the Maduro, right? Yeah.
Remotely did the Maduro.
Remotely. That's right. I want to thank all you guys out there for supporting us. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. That is the way you guys can do the monthly contributions, and we appreciate that. That helps us do this. It helps with the streaming. It helps with the audio posts. It helps with everything else, and less money out of Nate's and my pocket, which is very much appreciated. So appreciate that. Also, Venmo, if you want to do a one-time contribution at Bourbon and BS. And that's it. If you want us to buy a bottle, like if you wanted us to do a bottle like Traveler and you know we can get it for a certain amount, you do a Venmo, helps us out. Hopefully you guys can join us by drinking that with us on the episode that we do a bottle that you guys want us to do like that. So we appreciate all that support. Also want to thank Tinderbox at Easton. The Anniversario Connecticut from Aganorsa Leaf is available at Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, as well as the Validation Series, as well as some of the
Lunatic,
JFR stuff. Yeah, so there's definitely a good representation right now of Aganorsa Leaf at good range. Connecticut, Habano, we got some Maduros, we got some Corojos, we got all
big
sorts
ring
of stuff.
Gauge,
yeah,
normal ring gauge, price points, very budget friendly to, kind of higher end, but not out of the realm of a nice treat for yourself every now and again either.
Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff's going to be like average price point these days. I feel like this is a little bit of a tick up, but otherwise you're right there in the middle of it. So, but yeah, thank you, Tinderbox at East, and also Altadis USA. Tonight we're going to be focusing on some of the brands that Kunal has. So we are focusing on Aganorsa Leaf, and then are we going to do the other one?
You can if you want.
I think we should talk about it a little bit. Yeah,
even if it's just something fun for us to smoke different than what we typically get to smoke anyway.
Nate's curious. He doesn't know. That's cool.
I don't know.
Like surprises. Also, BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver are available. We got a new shipment of the silver coming into the Tinderbox at Easton of the Toro and the 6x58. So the silvers are coming back from Espinosa. I got a call from Eric today, actually. He says, I got some BS here. What am I doing with it? I should ship it. Get it up here. So, yeah, thank you, BS Cigar Company as well. And then also buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS for shirts like mine, the blue and black here. I got the pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together t-shirt. And we also have the Raglan, as they call it, the 3/4 sleeves, the BS Cigar Company. Front and back on that one, you've got the BS Cigar Company logo and then the BS band art on the back. So comes in different colors. There's also some hoodies for that fall season coming up. That 3/4 sleeve is great for this fall season coming up. I'm not trying to rush it. I'm enjoying the summer, but I'm just saying that's the way it is. So looking forward to you guys checking that out. Always post if you guys are wearing that stuff. Post it on the community page, Bourbon and BS community page on Facebook, and get us some pictures of you guys in the swag. Anything else? You guys ask some questions on the comment feed, mostly on the Facebook page, streaming live. Every other Wednesday, we're going to confuse people because we're doing this Wednesday and next Wednesday, and then 2 weeks off. And then September.
I thought there was something up with the calendar when you were sent. I was like, wait a minute.
We got Ryan Ponist, friend of the show. He's going to be on next week.
Oh, awesome.
So it worked out for that. But then there's other things going on. So we're going to not do the following week. Then I actually have to work the following Wednesday night.
What is that?
So we're going to do 2 weeks in a row and then 2 weeks off.
That's right.
All right.
It's very easy to keep the track of it.
2 on, 2 off.
Well, I was telling Kunal earlier before we started, I was like, yeah, we'd also decided we were going to start doing it at like 6:30 to 7.
And with guests and
so
very smooth. Very smooth. Hopefully we'll have more people tuning in. I'm going to share it here in a moment, but let's dive in here. Kunal, I'm going to light this up. First of all, you guys already took, I know if you guys can kind of see on mine. It's got just some beautiful, beautiful packaging on this cigar. So I got that. You said it's not quite tissue paper.
It's not quite tissue paper. It's that kind of in between. A lot of brands, even we used to kind of fold it over in the box as like a covering. So you kind of peel it off to the side before you got access to the cigar. So it doesn't really require anything beyond the tape to hold on to itself. So you don't have to put it onto the cigar. So it shouldn't damage, when it comes off, which is obviously something that gets often overlooked when you put those like satin bands and stuff like that. And you got to peel it off of it. Then it damages the bottom of your cigar. Even 1 out of 10 times, it's 1 out of 10 times we didn't want that to happen. So it's really nice. I've never had any issues with this not being able to come off or damaging the cigar.
It slides right off. It's actually very nice.
Yeah.
And it protects the cigar.
It does. Covers the bottom of it because it's not in cellophane, but we still wanted to give it something to protect it in the shipping. It looks really nice without the cellophane. So this is kind of like an in-between of protecting it without putting too many things on there and being able to keep it out of the cellophane. We just really like that presentation on it.
No, it's fantastic. And then the blue on this one, I love that blue color on there with the silver.
Yeah. Blue and silver pops.
I've loved the rebranding of the Anniversario of all of our stuff, really. But this one really, I think, stands out, looks like a very premium product, and then being able to differentiate just on the color of the label, white and silver, you got one, black and silver is a different one, blue and silver. So even if you don't remember exactly which one you smoked in that particular evening, if you have the color of the band, it's another way to help you identify which one you were smoking. Just these little things that we really thought that would help people kind of.
It helps in retail too. Yeah. People come up with a picture going, I smoked this. Like, cool, got it.
They don't show you any of the cigar. It's all the ash of it, which is great. Yeah, that's a photo they want to put on social media. But then you go, I don't know how to help you with this because the label's the same as all the other ones of that company.
I once had one early on my first shop where someone came in, asked if I was any good at recognizing bands, and the picture was actually the back of the band, and the picture was upside down, and immediately I was like, oh yeah, it's this cigar right here. And they're like, how the? I was like, well, when you smoke as much as I do or see enough of them,
you see them all the time, you start picking up on those bands and labels.
Well, that's part of the marketing, right? Is so that it is memorable. It's something that, they want to know what it is. They take a picture of it, and then hopefully, you can kind of track that down. Absolutely. But that's why you guys go to this extent of all of this with the sleeve on there, if you will. And then obviously with the 2 bands on this one. I mean, the packaging is definitely not to leave anything out there.
No, you can read it. It's pretty legible, easy to determine that this is the Anniversario. Obviously, we want to keep all the Aganorsa Leaf aspect of it kind of unanimous across the board so that you recognize them all as Aganorsa. But then, this one doesn't look exactly the same as the validation or the signature or a JFR, right? So we're trying to do all these little things to just help it stand out as its own product while being recognizable within the family.
Oh yeah. Well, and even compared to the validation series, like you can tell, like just the band on this one is a step up.
Yeah,
from those. The
feel of it, the weight of it. I know we're gonna sound really pretentious talking about the label, but
but it's your premium,
it's our top of the top. We want every little aspect of it.
As you'd like.
Notes of. I can feel the Italian handmade
Corinthian leather.
Yeah. Well, I don't even.
We were talking about
sheets or thread count. I don't know what that equivalent is in terms of paper or feel, but yeah, it's got all that.
It's a nice parchment on this here.
Yeah. There we go.
Anyways,
paper. I got this from an elementary school.
Stole from children. Good. Tell us about the cigar, please. So, Connecticut. I'd say for those that are kind of newer into cigars, you're going to see Connecticut used almost as a generic term a lot of times. There is some, I guess there's some basis to it, obviously, with the seed, but Connecticut a lot of times turns out rightfully so in a lot of ways to describe a milder offering from a company. But why is it called Connecticut?
So Connecticut stems from, like you said, the seed of being a Connecticut shade seed. I think it originated way back in the day here in the United States is where it's primarily grown in the shade. And then that seed was kind of transported over to where most of it is grown now in Ecuador, which is where this particular leaf comes from. But it is a specific kind of a tobacco seed. if it's specified as Connecticut shade seed. Obviously, there's Connecticut broadleaf, and if it just says Connecticut, and you look at one that has this nice golden brown color, and one that's very hardy and robust, you're like, there's not any way this is the same. And you're correct, it's not the same, but they're two different seeds entirely, which is why that's the case. I think for a long time, the Connecticut, if you break it all by itself, Connecticut shade wrapper leaf by itself is sometimes a little bitter, actually. It's why it's not really commonly utilized in like Cuban cigars, and that's why Maduro has that sweetness from the aging that it goes through. But I think a lot of companies for a long time just made it a milder blend because it by itself was something that lent very nicely to not impacting a milder blend all that much. So for a long, long time, Connecticut or Connecticut shade or shade, etc., were all pretty much only mild offerings from a company, which is why they've, I think, gotten the most kind of misconception, I think, more than any of the other leaves of tobacco, right? People think Maduro has to be strong, etc. But I think Connecticut shade really gets a bad rep from, you know, a history or a long-standing history of a certain particular style. That's really not the case for every company just because it's Connecticut.
I think it also has been a little bit bastardized that it takes away from the history and the origin of that Connecticut seed. I don't know if you really got into that a whole lot. I stepped away for a second, but the fact that there is such a beautiful growing region in Connecticut in the U.S.
Yeah. And now we know it as the Connecticut River Valley is where we kind of talk about all that broadleaf. Even Pennsylvania grows some broadleaf as well. So, yeah, obviously a very small growing region, and maybe at one point in time when, you know, they didn't have to have as much of a supply, it was able to produce for that. But they were the first ones to really do something very specific and unique in the terms of growing of tobacco, and it was specific to that region here in the United States, which is pretty remarkable that something that was done back then in a very small area has now been long impacting to the point where it's really, I mean, every company is going to have a Connecticut shade or a Connecticut shade seed wrapper cigar.
Yeah, and
just about, I mean, because it's almost par for the course, I feel like, because companies want to have, like, they want to have a mild, they want to have a medium, they want to have full body. Typically, if they're going to do something mild, that Connecticut's going to go where they're going to go, because that's a name and a style that people have
it's used a lot of times, and I see it more. Actually, Aganorsa Leaf, you guys are a prime example of, for a while there, and I'm not going to mention any companies, because I don't think they did anything wrong with it, but you had the Connecticut, you had the Sun Grown, and you had the Maduro. Those are your three blends you're coming out with. That's it. You know what I mean? That's your core line. And then from I think the misconception part was what I was kind of alluding to in the beginning, was the Connecticut is your milder one.
Right.
Sun Grown's medium, even though the Connecticut shade grown is one thing, but everything else is sun grown. So it was kind of a very
misnomer.
It was just a marketing term that I think got out of hand for a while. And now I think you see a lot of companies, including Aganorsa Leaf, you have the Connecticut, because Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper. Then you have your Corojo wrapper, then you have your Habano wrapper, then you have a Maduro. And Maduro is, I would say, in my opinion, you guys tell me what you think, that's the last bastardized term, I think, right now being used for your darker, fuller cigar. You see some Oscuro out there, you see some of, like, you know, but it's like Maduro, it's a little misleading because it's not a type of wrapper leaf. Right. It is a shade. So I think you are seeing a little bit more Mexican San Andreas. You're seeing Connecticut broadleaf used as part of the explanation, which I would venture to guess you'd see in the next probably 5 years more bands out there saying San Andreas. You see more saying broadleaf, because I'm already seeing broadleaf. I mean, even Camacho is throwing that on one now. But there's a lot of others I think they're going to start throwing the type of wrapper leaf out there, like you guys. I don't know, you're not the original to do that, but you guys definitely made that a part of your marketing when you rebranded all of this stuff.
Yeah, we have two different kinds of Maduro, Mexican San Andreas, and then we also have, which was what is on the Anniversario Maduro, was the Nicaraguan shade-grown Corojo Maduro.
Yeah.
And that specifies a lot of things.
It doesn't really fit on a band.
It doesn't, but it fits in the box, which is why in the flip inside of the box on the signature, it will say Nicaraguan, or, you know, I don't know if it says that, but it says shade-grown Corojo Maduro, specifying the seed being Corojo, Maduro specifying the maturity of that particular leaf, and then shade-grown, because a lot of people don't necessarily know that there is a lot of shade grown wrapper leaf because you need that wrapper leaf to be very pretty. And the better way to get that to happen so that the color is uniform and it doesn't have all that mottling and kind of roughness, just to put it into the shade. So, and even though it is a Maduro, it is a shade grown leaf. It's pretty unique. Not a lot of people are, I mean, at least none that I know of off the top of my head are really doing that. So that's why we specify that on that particular cigar. So whatever cigar it is from us that you're getting, it's going to specify the kind of seed that is contributing to that blend, because to your point, Maduro really just, I mean, it translates to mature. It just means dark. Doesn't actually specify a varietal of what is contributing to the flavor, to the unique characteristics of what makes that particular blend.
Yeah, I think the Maduro thing, we'll get off that note. I mean, I think there were some cigars coming out for a while that when you look at that color scale, if you will, you had the Colorado, which I think confused people because, again, you go to Connecticut, you try to educate someone like, well, that's because it originates in Connecticut. Right. You know, it's either grown in Connecticut, it's Ecuadorian Connecticut, Nicaraguan Connecticut, whatever it might be. And it's like, well, this is the Colorado. Oh, like what part of Colorado is that in? You're like, God damn it, that's not
Denver.
That's not
probably not pronouncing it properly either. I'm guessing it's like Colorado.
Probably. And then you have Oscuro that no one knew what that meant. And it's like, that's actually darker than Maduro,
right?
According to scale. So it can be, I think, confusing. So I can appreciate the watering down, if you will, of some of those terms, just so there's a little consistency in the market, especially for newer smokers, newer consumers. I think it's nice to see. Well, I only like the Connecticut's because I like something mild.
Right.
Which then leads into like what you said before we went on air, was like, oh, it's not your grandfather's Connecticut. It's a term that a lot of companies are using right now.
It is
because I think that's part of the transition where it's like, yes, it's Connecticut, but no, I don't want you to think of it as super mild, like a lot of the older ones that were called the Connecticut. You know what I mean? Because they was blended to mild. Right. Yeah, I don't like the real light stuff. Well, no. My Connecticut's not necessarily as mild as what you're used to. I'm not sure.
I think
I like more medium plus.
That's where that misconception comes in, because ultimately most of the strength, if not all the strength, really, as far as the nicotine in the body of a cigar, is going to be in the filler binder blend of it, right? That's where the Ligero is. There's very few cigars, I think, like the Roma Craft Whiskey Rebellion is one that I can think of where the wrapper is a Ligero leaf, which is why it's such an insanely potent cigar. But that's not common because Ligero doesn't burn very well, and you need the wrapper to burn very well. It's not pretty. So yeah, the strength is not because the color on the outside leaf is a certain way. A company has created a blend to have a certain profile, and they may feel that particularly the Maduro wrapper is going to work the best with their stronger version of a blend,
right?
And vice versa. But it doesn't mean that it has to be, mild because it's a lighter color or strong because it's a darker color. Right. It's more of a happenstance, but that happenstance is more often than not a particular way. So we kind of pigeonhole everything into, no, now it's a blanket. It has to be this way. And I think it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of great cigars that are either Connecticut or Maduro for the guy that likes milder cigars, and he thinks, oh, I can't smoke Maduros because they're so strong, and he's missing out on a whole world of very good cigars.
That's where the watering down, I think, gets a little, like, it leaves something on the table sometimes for certain cigars.
And I think between those two, between Connecticut and Maduro, I think they both have that reputation for being a certain profile.
Yeah.
I think Maduro was the one that first steered away from that and started to do medium or even a little bit lighter cigars that were Maduro, because you even still today, you get people coming into a cigar shop and they still have that notion that if it's dark, it's going to be really strong.
Yeah.
Right? I think, and then later is when we saw Connecticut make that same change going the other direction. It's like, just because it's got that Connecticut doesn't mean it's mild. That's the way it used to be, but it's not.
Prime example of a fairly older brand, if you will, through Altadis is, it's interesting because it's the Onyx, the original Onyx, has a very, very dark Connecticut broadleaf wrapper, and it's a milder blend.
Right.
So it looks, that's where you can confuse everyone.
Oh, yeah.
If they would put Onyx Connecticut, they're like, well, wait, that's because it's actually the broadleaf is made, like it's grown in Connecticut, but Connecticut means lighter. It's like, well, it is a lighter blend, but the darker wrapper means that it's fuller. It's like, just
and then when they came out with the
just smoke it. Just,
and then what was
let me cut it for you. Just
the Onyx
it,
Bold? Right? Like the Bold, the wrapper was a little bit lighter color than the original Onyx, but was way stronger.
Yeah. So okay.
And I can't tell you how many people would argue with me in, at my time at Jungle or even at events. I'll have, any of the Maduros that are that Corojo Maduro are not quite as dark as a San Andres or a broadleaf. And it says right on the label, says on the box, Maduro. And they go, this isn't a Maduro. It's not dark enough.
Yeah.
Well, again, there's no guideline that it has to be pitch black to be a Maduro. This is our Maduro because the leaf has been aged longer. Therefore, it is a mature Maduro leaf. It's just not pitch black. But they'll just look me in the face. That's not a Maduro.
Or it's not colored or dyed.
They're using now, I've seen with a lot of because Mexican San Andres wrappers are typically darker. Now you're seeing Claro used, more often. Like I feel
Colorado
like
Claro.
I feel like there's a growth here as far as because the age we're in with things like podcasts like this or the blogs or even beyond that, whatever you want to call things like Half Wheel and Cigar Coop. They're beyond blogs now. I mean, they're like review websites really. Yeah. So you have a lot of information out there. Ray Cheshire had a great one here. I don't choose cigars with Connecticut wrappers. Not to say I don't like them, but subconsciously I would never choose them. And I think that's kind of what we're getting at there with this part of the conversation is that it's I don't smoke mild stuff typically. And so when it says Connecticut on there, you could actually steer that conversation a different way or just not even have that conversation.
Unfortunately, there's no way to blind cigars, right? You can take the label off and you can this, and I can tell you all these things about it, but ultimately you're going to see what the outside of that cigar looks like and make a judgment.
Yeah.
Whether you want to or not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And
you're going to.
And people that know me know I tend to prefer, medium full body cigars. I love Maduros, rich, dark, chocolatey cigars. And there was a brand that we've had on the podcast numerous times that when they debuted, they came out, there was a Connecticut, a Maduro, and a Habano. And I'm sitting there going, oh, the Maduro, that's going to be my favorite. And the Connecticut's my favorite. I smoked the Connecticut more than the other two, probably combined.
Yeah.
And what brand was that?
Knuckle Sandwich.
Knuckle Sandwich.
Yeah.
I got to say, I like, even in this, and let's get it back on this particular cigar. Love your guys's, call it Corojo blends, the way you blend with that Corojo wrapper. I still feel maybe it's changing, but that's what you guys are known for, at least from my perspective.
We're still known for that. Yeah.
That wrapper leaf is one of the best, I think, in the industry, utilized to blend with more of that medium strength blends a lot of the time. Obviously, you said that you have the Maduro, the darker Corojo as well. But of these blends, you have that Corojo, which was the original, which originally was of Aganorsa Leaf. It was Casa Fernandez branded before that. And that was one size, limited edition
every year. Right, correct.
2012.
They had, I think that's when the number started. Before. And then I think I remember them going up to 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
And I think after that is when we shifted away and just called it the Anniversario, where we went away from the Miami branding on there specifically.
Yeah, you don't have the Miami factory operating right now either, do you?
We got one roller down there still. She's the one that makes those event-only cigars and rolls all the fumas.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why they want us to give them as much notice as possible so that she has time to make all the fumas.
Got it.
We'll say, hey, I got an event next week. I need 100 fumas. She's got to make them. She needs time to make them.
You're a dick.
Make the call.
I don't know. Yeah, we need more notice than that.
But I'd say you have that Corojo, then you expand into the Maduro. And again, beautiful cigar. When this Connecticut came out, per our conversation we just had, I was kind of like, I guess they had a gap there that they had to put out there. I'm like, the Corojo is smoking beautifully. The Maduro's stronger, a little not too strong. So I don't think going full bodied there. Connecticut, all right. That's just, they needed a third one in their portfolio. Then more recently in the last couple of years, I started smoking it and was blown away.
Yeah. So this particular one is the newest of the three, and it came out at the trade show last year. So it's been around just over a year. I mean, maybe a year technically with when they started shipping. But I think that's one of the things, at least to me, that Aganorsa doesn't make cigars for the sake of it, right? Like we don't have a 770 JFR Connecticut, even though we have that in the other two. Why? Because it doesn't smoke right.
Right.
So we don't make it just because we made that size in the other two.
Yeah.
So now we have to do it in the Connecticut, or we didn't do this in the Connecticut because we had to, or we felt that we had to have it for the sake of the market because we had 2 other Connecticut's. So if we want to put out a new blend, we really want it to be with a purpose so that it's going to have its own smoking experience that's different than the other things that are even a part of it. So obviously this being an Anniversario, it has the identity and it fits along with the other 2, but it's not just a simple repackaging, change the outer leaf and call it a day. Right. This was a completely different blend. And I really feel that it is, even just in the overall flavor profile, not necessarily because of the wrapper, but because of the rest of what the cigar is. Yeah. It doesn't smoke just like the Maduro with a slightly different wrapper or kind of flavor to it. It's a different experience, I think, overall.
Ecuadorian Connecticut over Nicaraguan binder and filler.
Correct.
That's all you guys really release.
That's what we grow, right?
That's all. That's all you guys. Talk about which.
It's Corojo and Criollo.
Okay.
Because everything is going to
That's like the backbone of your guys' stuff.
We take those 2 tobaccos and they're in every single cigar we make. We make 1,000 some odd blends for us and other companies. And there's different ways you can play with those 2 varietals. Obviously, like I think we have 14 farms. Quote me on that. I believe that's the number I remember hearing when I was down there. And, depending on what plot or depending on what year it grew in, so we may have to use more of this and that blend one year and different the other. So that's why we don't really specify beyond that. But, those 2 varietals are in everything that we grow. We grow those 2 and use them in everything that we make for a reason.
Got it. This, I would say, compared to your Validation Connecticut, is smoother. It's got a little bit more of like as I think people term it, creamier type of smoke. What do you guys think? Nate, you go ahead.
I agree with the creaminess and that's one thing I like about well done Connecticut cigars is I feel like with that wrapper leaf, you get this really thick white cloud of smoke that comes off of it. You don't have to worry about it not going in my face.
I know. I feel rude. Like,
nah. Well, now if you blow it directly in my face, we got a problem. But if it drifts,
I'm so used to hanging out on the patio with the girlfriend, and she hates it. So I'm always like trying to get it out
blowing
of.
I work in a.
And then it goes like this.
I know.
Yeah, we work in a cigar shop. Winter's coming up. I got to get used to it.
Sure.
Here we go.
But no, that's one of the things I love when I tell people about if they're looking for something with a Connecticut wrapper. That's one of the characteristics of that tobacco that I really enjoy is because it has this really thick texture to the smoke itself. The smoke's where all your flavor is. That's what's hitting your palate. That's how you're able to pick up on flavor. So when it's that thick of a smoke, you're able to taste so much more of that cigar than something that has a really thin profile smoke to it.
Right. It's coating your palate and it's allowing the flavor that is there to be more prominent, which is obviously going to lead to a more enjoyable experience. Yeah. And this is, and I preface this when people ask me about this, and I say, I think this will surprise you. They go, what do you mean? I said, well, it's not a thin, bland, boring Connecticut. That's the first word I use. It's not thin.
Okay.
It's medium body. And that, again, kind of refers to what you're alluding to, that thickness of the smoke.
Yeah. And it's also got a little bit of like a soft white pepper through the retrohale. But it's very pleasant. It's not overbearing. It's still smooth through the nose. The other thing I do enjoy about high quality Connecticut's like this is it's got a velvety texture to the leaf itself.
Well, and the soft box press doesn't hurt.
Well, nothing about the shape, because I've smoked other Connecticut's that go round. I'm talking about
I got it.
Like the actual feel. If you rub your finger back and forth on the leaf, like it actually has a little bit of a velvety texture to it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's a little darker in color too than a lot of shades of Connecticut shade cigars. I think both, or really all of our Connecticut shade cigars kind of have a little darker color to them. Not that is the reason why that they smoke a certain way. It's just, I think, something I've noticed that our Connecticut's are a little heftier and the color on the wrapper is a little darker too.
It is. It's definitely not like a super light Connecticut. I would assume
It's not like bright neon yellow.
And it might be a slightly higher priming too. I don't know if you know what priming that wrapper comes off of.
Specifically. It's
Okay.
not. I'm not a part of the blending process on
No,
it. So yeah, it's not one of those tidbits of information that I've
Sometimes I feel
gathered.
like it's a little bit, maybe sometimes a higher priming leaf. It's not total, I mean, just to get a little bit more of that sun on there.
Right.
Could be part of the fermentation process. Yeah, I'm digging it. I've liked this blend, like I said, since I first started smoking it, even with that hesitation going into
they made the token Connecticut in the line.
There you go.
They just have to have it because I mean, in this one, for example, right, it only comes in 2 sizes, Robusto and Toro. We didn't make a Grand Toro in it because at the time what I was told is it didn't smoke right. So even though we want everything to line up and try to be as consistent in the sizing and everything like that, but we didn't make the 58 just because it didn't smoke right in the 58. So we just didn't do that. I think there's a lot of intent behind what Aganorsa tries to do.
When you say it didn't smoke right,
it didn't smoke the way that it would come across as being the similar experience that we were trying to convey with the blend.
It didn't translate the blend,
It lost too much.
Construction wise, is that what you're asking? Like when you say
no, like when you got to that bigger ring gauge, did the obviously you're going to have more filler in there to get that bigger ring gauge. Did that filler then overpower the nuances of the Connecticut wrapper? Was the flavor profile lighter than the others? So what was it that didn't match?
I don't know the exact determination of that, but typically that's what I've noticed in just all brands. When you smoke obviously thinner to larger ring gauges, the things that typically change on that slider, I feel like whatever it was, whether it was a lack of flavor or too much of a particular flavor standing out that didn't really match up with the overall experience that was intended behind this blend.
Which makes sense. I mean, sometimes on the larger ring gauges, you do have to tweak that filler just to make it. You might, to your point, Nate, maybe it did smoke a little too strong. Maybe there was, more of that. Maybe sometimes I find, the bigger ring gauge, especially not as much on the Connecticut's, but pretty much most cigars, it almost like kind of mellows out the blend a little bit and almost made it lighter. You just don't know, but you can tweak those blends, and maybe that is a project that we'll see come out, a Grand Toro coming out. But
yeah, as it was when they were workshopping it, working it out, trying to finalize and nail down the details, they just felt like, we're just going to do Robusto and Toro. That's how they're smoking the way we want, and the other size, just not at this time.
And I can respect that you didn't force the issue. Like, oh well, we got to do the same sizes, even though it's not going to smoke right. Because that's something that if you have people that like your stuff and like that particular size, and then but they go back and forth,
that's a disservice. I think if you do something just for the sake of it, a lot of times, especially with a lot of companies, these guys are blending old Cuban guys, and they love those little 40, 42 ring gauge cigars. Well, they sell it in America. All right, it has to be a 60 ring gauge, and then it doesn't smoke anything like what that blend was created.
I smoked a Lancero today.
I was going to say, I think you should run it up the old flagpole here, is that we need this blend in a Lancero.
When I talked to Terrence and I asked him, when are we getting, this was a little while back, so when are we getting a Maduro Anniversario Lancero? He just kind of laughed and then walked away. I was like, all right.
Try it with this one.
There's your answer.
Try it with this one. Let's do it.
I don't know what that means, but
a lot of love on your Iron Maiden shirt, by the way.
Because then you get your third size. You get your third size in the blend.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we need to know about this cigar for now?
As far as like statistical information, not really. Like we're now completing the trilogy, right? As to your point, we did in order from time of creation, I guess, right? Original, then the Maduro, and now the Connecticut. This particular one was rated number 3 in Cigar Snob magazine in their top end of the year list last year. Like I said, when I hand this to people, I say I think it'll surprise you. It is not a thin, boring, bland cigar. We don't make anything super mild. It's definitely going to be a, to your guys' point, creamier, velvety, thicker smoke. You're going to get a lot of flavor out of it. Whether the profile is to your liking, obviously it's always subjective, but you're not going to not like the cigar because you can't taste what it has to offer.
Right. And for those that are listening live, I just commented on there. There's something with the connection. It was fine at first, and now it's kind of going in and out. Not sure what's going on with the Wi-Fi. Doesn't matter how much I pay for Wi-Fi. There's always going to be an issue for some reason. But
looks good for me.
Well, good. It keeps pausing on mine, and I think that's what they're seeing there. I can see it's a low signal, and then it goes up, then comes back down. I can restart everything, computer, router, modem, everything. Still have issues. So hopefully it's good enough for you guys, and it stays strong enough. It does. I don't think it's going to storm. It's not supposed to, but it is starting to get humid out here. No? It's getting darker.
It's getting wet.
It's getting wet. Getting a little bit soupy. Yeah, Ray, I mean, we have that shitty internet out there here in America. But so we're doing this here. We've talked about this bottle since this product has been released. And even when I told Kunal that we were doing this, what was your response?
Just sheer ecstatic excitement.
I can feel the sarcasm.
I was beside myself. I really scared the dog.
We only
jumping for joy.
We only saved the best for you.
I know. The best weather, I got to come here when it was freezing cold and you ran out of propane to heat it up. And
did
then
you die?
Who got to he's pulling a Ken Jong, but did you die?
Mm-hmm. You're fine.
Who got to sit inside the store? Was it Tyler or
Yeah.
Jake?
Yeah, Tyler.
Jake came like 2 weeks later and it was like unseasonably warm. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Must be nice.
You're talking to the guys that do it all year round too, though. So
forces you.
It's true. It's true. Here in America, sorry. Yeah. Ray. Gosh. These gonna be fun comments, I think, in the next 4 months. And beyond. So we're doing Traveler whiskey. This product had all sorts of hype leading up to its release. Like stupid.
Like secondary flipping.
Yeah, I'll get into that.
Yeah, the first shipment, at least where we are, flew. Like, I mean, it was the day it was released.
Gone.
All of them were gone. People, and there was no limit, so people were buying. I mean, I heard from people that were buying 3, 6 bottles, whatever, as many as they could get their hands on first shipment without even sipping this thing. I've expressed my belief of the response for Traveler whiskey post first release of it. And so I'm happy that we have it actually on the show tonight because I want to talk about it as a product, about the hype, the lack thereof now, and kind of just more of just a product. Let's talk about it. Let's review it here. Nate, go ahead.
So it is a blended whiskey. It says it right on the back of the label. It is blended and bottled by Buffalo Trace. A lot of the juice in there is coming from multiple distilleries. It even says on the back, coming from multiple award-winning distilleries.
Mm-hmm.
Notice it doesn't say bourbon. It doesn't say rye. So it's a blend of some of those products. It's a whiskey. It's a blended whiskey. Now, Sazerac did confirm that there is no neutral grain spirits added to it. So it is literally just a blend of whiskeys. It's got a very light kind of golden color to it. This released January of this year. And I think
a whirlwind since then on this product.
And I think it came into Ohio in February. But I remember at Carfagna's getting asked for it all the time. And I hadn't even heard of it. And then one day I had a customer ask, I looked on the state's website and it was on the state's OHLQ website. And I was like, oh, it's coming soon. And then literally the next day we got our shipment.
Kunal, what's with the face?
It just killed all the exciting flavor of my cigar.
Okay.
It's not a strong whiskey.
No.
Only 90 proof. So.
90 proof. Yeah. It's it's the first ever celebrity collaboration done by Buffalo Trace. So the oldest continuously running distillery in the U.S. And this is the first time they've ever done a celebrity collaboration. It's with country artist Chris Stapleton, who had the big hit song Traveler.
He's had a few others.
He's had a few others. I mean, a couple Grammys and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's done. I mean,
Yeah,
if you've
He's
heard
all
of
right.
him,
He's fine.
he's a hack. I tell you,
It's all auto-tune.
auto tune. I've seen him live. It's not.
Yeah. I mean,
feel like you're waiting to read the back of the bottle.
No, go ahead. I'm listening to you.
Well, we can get into some of the other aspects of the release, the hype, the what's gone on. But yeah, go ahead and read.
All right, it's got the story. So first of all, I'm digging the branding of it. I will say
Very
that
simplistic.
very simplistic, kind of a classic bottle. I don't know what you call that shape.
Weller-esque.
More narrow, I feel like.
Not as aggressive of a curve.
So this looks like I kind of like it. I'll describe this with the color of the label on there, the simplicity, kind of like something that's going to be sitting on like an old dusty dive bar, saloon, whatever you want to call it. I think it kind of looks like that. You know, you're not really out there being bold like a lot of the stuff out there with the full go on there, all these colors. And, oh my God, yeah. And for a celebrity one, kind of refreshing. You know, celebrity collaboration here. So on the front, you got Traveler whiskey, blended whiskey, blend number 40. And this is coming in at 90 proof. It says it right there on the bottle on the front. So yeah, it's a little gimmicky on the back, right? So you get in there and it says, good whiskey is like a good song. It requires no explanation. One taste should tell you everything you need to know. No one has to tell you how to feel about it. You simply settle in and enjoy. For the first of its kind collaboration from Buffalo Trace Distillery, Traveler brings together the collective artistry of Chris Stapleton and master distiller Harlan Wheatley. Blend number 40 is the carefully curated result of countless hours of testing and tasting. It's a completely unique combination of whiskeys from award-winning distillers and exactly what you'd expect, a premium whiskey that speaks for itself. And then you got two signatures on there, Harlan Wheatley and then Chris Stapleton.
And then I believe it also lists them on that label as co-founders.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it says master distiller and co-founder, and then musician and co-founder. So they kind of branded this as its own brand.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, to your point, it is proudly blended and bottled by Buffalo Trace Distillery, Frankfort, Connecticut, or Kentucky. Wrong. So yeah. Doesn't say Buffalo Trace other than where it's blended and bottled.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And you had asked before we went live, like, why does it say underneath on the primary label blend number 40?
Right.
So they tried more than 50 different blends, and number 40 was this blend. The one that they settled on was this one. And I think it was a blend that they were trying to appeal to greater audiences, something that isn't super heavy. It's not real spicy. It's not a powerhouse of a whiskey, something that's meant to be like an easy sipper is what I think they were shooting for.
You can sip on it, throw some ice cubes. You can make it a cocktail with it, right? I mean, it's a mixer as well. Coming with that price point also.
Well, that's what's funny. It's changed just in the 6 months it's been around.
Yeah, so when
in
this first came out in Ohio, I think the suggested retail was $39.99.
I think it was 40. Right?
Yeah, now it's $34.99.
$34.99, and the state sent out an email last week. The 1 liter bottles will be $39.95 or $39.99. So the 1 liters will be the price that the 750 was when it first came out.
So I'm a country artist fan, big Chris Stapleton fan. Saw him in concert. Fantastic voice.
Yeah.
He, I think, has, Ray out there says, oh, there you go, then mix country music into anything and it's going to be worse. What I love so with Chris Stapleton, we talk about that a little bit. Chris Stapleton, there are lots, not as much new, but some of his live performances you've seen those YouTube videos. Some of you guys may have seen it. Some of you haven't. Where it's like a music teacher or a vocal coach reaction videos. And they had a big one too, where, because this is the day and age we're in, but like country artist. And you had like a black musician or a black,
Right.
you know,
Very opposite
reviewer, like, you
from
know,
that style.
and they hear his voice, the soulfulness of it, whatever. And most people were just blown away by it. So yes, I get the viewpoint if you're not into country music and all that stuff, but his voice and his talent, songwriting, everything has been well received kind of across the whole, beyond the genre of country music, from what I've seen, as far as, like, again, the YouTube videos, people talking about it. He also had a great rendition, one of the greatest, in my opinion, of recent times, of the national anthem last year. I don't know if you've heard that at Super Bowl.
Better than the All-Star game.
Oh, yeah.
So it's
I mean,
up there.
That's
It's up there.
Yeah, it's
I don't think he was as drunk.
Nope.
He could have been.
Yeah.
No.
But
We'll get to that.
what I'll say about this too, though, is that you've got Chris Stapleton on there, and then Nate, we can kind of talk more about. Let's talk about the actual juice. You know what we're drinking here. Then we can go in a little bit more about the bottle and the hype and everything else. But we've had on the show, not Guy Fieri, but we've had the knuckle sandwich stuff on the cigar side, which I think has. I would go out on a limb. I don't think it's that big of a limb, but say that has been the most successful celebrity collaboration. It's been the most backed by said celebrity as far as promoting it, which we've talked about that on this show before, where Eric and Guy both, because I heard it from Eric before several times, and then we had Guy Fieri in the shop, and he had his angle of it. They both kind of say the same thing. Like, we didn't want to just do a celebrity endorsed cigar brand and then nothing beyond it. It's just going to be out there. I haven't really seen a whole lot with Chris Stapleton pumping this product. I haven't personally. Like, it's out there. It was more of a Buffalo Trace backed product with the bourbon and the whiskey consumers or the groups. And, you know, the hype behind it was that it was a new Buffalo Trace product and this shit's going to fly. And Chris Stapleton was on there, but it was kind of an afterthought for most of the bourbon or whiskey consumers, I think. And more the mainstream, I have some friends that aren't huge into the whiskeys, but they knew about it because they're Stapleton fans. Yeah. So I think they kind of hit both targets, but since then, the hype has been tripped up a little bit. Would you agree with that?
What do you mean when you say tripped up?
It's everywhere. You had a price decrease. I mean, where I was, it's always on the shelf. They even have a little like stack of them, you know, near the counter. Yeah. So I don't know if in the state of Ohio, I don't know if the state of Ohio put a huge buy in, you know, as far as pushing this to get it in, thinking that it would have the hype. That was I think it would. I think they thought it would carry the hype for a while of like that first shipment coming in February, like you said, where this would be a constant seller. And when it came into the Ohio state liquor stores, which is how this state works, that it would be gone, right? Gone every time, like most Buffalo Trace products.
Yeah. The first time our store got it, we got 2 cases of it, and we weren't limiting it, and sold through both cases in a day. And then the next week we got 8 cases.
Yeah. And
we were limiting it to 2 per person. And I think it sold out in 2 days. I mean, so you had people coming in like just buying the shit out of it. As soon as it first hit, right, they're buying it up. And like that initial release of it, there were people flipping it for $80. $40 bottle, and they were flipping it for $80.
No one had cracked this shit.
Yep.
Immediate currency.
Yep. I remember.
Yep.
I remember seeing that, and I had no idea because I'm not tied into any country music or Chris Stapleton circle, so I didn't get it in front of my eyes from that regard. I just saw it on secondary being sold for whatever, 100, 120, $80. I'm like, what is this new thing that's being sold at probably more money than it needs to be sold for? And I looked at the price. I was like, $40. I'm like, all right, I guess this is some new thing. I don't know why. And to your point, it wasn't even remaining in store, so I couldn't even go up to the bottle and look to see that it was a Buffalo Trace or Buffalo Trace adjacent product to know, oh, that's why.
It's a good term, Mike. I like that.
Yeah, that is good.
Buffalo
Well,
Trace adjacent.
yeah,
I like that. Yeah, yeah.
But I think that was a couple issues that we ran into with this product was before this product ever launched, Chris Stapleton had done in a press release basically that he was drastically cutting back on his drinking because he would
bad timing for that. Really.
He was overindulging way too much. And so like even one of the comments had is like, I thought he doesn't even drink. It's like, no, he does. Like he's actually got a couple hundred bottles of whiskey at his house, but he doesn't drink the way he used to because he just used to drink to excess all the time.
Right.
So, but now there's that stigma. It's like, oh yeah, it's by this guy who doesn't even drink. It'd be like, someone who doesn't smoke starting a cigar company.
Right.
Almost. That's kind of the way
people were thinking about it.
Oh, there we go.
Just let it go.
Yep.
Thierry, Jello. Fuck off.
But then that was the other thing. Like there were so many people, and I think that's part of what the initial hype was about this product. You had a lot of people that thought this was going to be the next great thing from Buffalo Trace.
Right.
No.
And it's like, well, and I used to say it to people, the way I would say is like, well, from Buffalo Trace, it's not necessarily by, because it doesn't say on the bottle distilled by Buffalo Trace. It says blended and bottled by Buffalo Trace.
And I'm gonna chime in there because this is my viewpoint and my opinion is that when you said that this is the next great thing, right? Is that how you said it?
Yeah.
It's the next great thing from Buffalo Trace.
This is the next Elmer. This is the next Weller. This is the next
great thing. How?
I think people thought like flavor profile, like this was going to be on par with like, especially at that price point, like Eagle Rare. Or like this was going to be Buffalo Trace, but better kind of thing.
And I disagree. I think that a lot of people that snatch up the Buffalo Trace products, Sazerac products, and whiskey, the bourbon side, not everyone likes it.
Yeah, that's true.
They thought that this was going to be the next currency. I think it was, and I've said this before, and that's why I'm excited to do this bottle because I'm interested to hear what people think. This thing was hyped up and then was regularly available shortly after that. But you guys already touched on it that immediately it was on the secondary market for double the price, if not more.
If not more, right.
So I think, and I've said it before, this thing didn't have a chance. If the production levels were lower, this thing would still be limit one per bottle at your store. This thing would be selling for double the price. It's that transparent to me. When you say that this was the next great thing from Buffalo Trace, this was the next great flipping bottle where I can make some quick money.
Okay.
That's it. You cannot tell me that everyone that buys a Weller Special Reserve thinks that is like a great value bottle. Not everyone likes that bottle. Mm-hmm. Everyone can sell it.
And they know it can.
And that's why that goes.
Yep.
I actually hear a lot more people where I think that, like, if I'm going to compare like Weller Green and Weller Red, I like Antique 107 better. Most people I talk to don't, but they buy it for 50. They can use, I can trade 2-3 bottles of Weller Red for X up in Michigan, up here. I can sell it on, flip all this shit.
Yep.
That's what ruined this. Buffalo Trace products aren't all good to everyone. That's not why they're flying off the shelf. I like a lot of their products. I really do. And I love the fact I can find Sazerac Rye now on most shelves.
Shelfer, finally.
Yeah.
And why is that? There's no secondary market.
Nope.
That's it. And I talk to different people about that, and some people agree with me that they think it's a great mixer, that's a great sipper even. Yeah. And then people are like, nah, it's not. Nah, Sazerac, nah. There's so many better ryes. I'm like, at $25, $28, $30?
$30.99.
And the reason that's on there is because no one's going to buy it from you.
Yeah. No
one's going to buy it from you. I'm of the opinion this is not the greatest bottle. Traveler whiskey is not the greatest bottle of blended whiskey out there. I think for $35, it's a solid bottle. I think this thing got trounced when all these assholes snatched them up and were selling them for $80. People stopped buying them, and they're like, fuck, I've got 3 cases in my man cave downstairs that I can't move.
So I just lost. It's like trading stocks. They messed up.
That's it.
They bought a stock and it went down.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was, and that's why it's out there. This thing has gotten a bad name, I think, in the bourbon world, which is not even a bourbon.
Yep.
I think it got a bad rap because it's like a bad stock. That's a great way to put it. You went all in and you fucked up, dude, because believe it or not, they made this not to flip, not to give you secondary income, not to screw over people. They made this so hopefully you drink it.
Bought a bunch of Yahoo and then it turned into nothing.
You got in late.
Yeah.
That's my opinion of why this bottle has gotten what seems to be a not so great reputation.
Yeah. So, like I said, when it first came out in February in Ohio, I believe it was. I know it released officially January, but I think in Ohio it was February. Yeah, I mean, we were selling multiple cases a day. Now we go through a case every 3 or 4 weeks.
Interesting.
Case of 12?
A case of 12. Like when we got that, when we got our second delivery, and it was those 8 cases, we literally case stacked it right across from the register. So people would just walk in, there it was, boom, come over, out the door. They never had to go more than 6 feet into the store. And it was just flying off the shelf. And then the next time we got it, we did the same thing. And then there was the issue where the distributor ran out of it so quickly. Because we were like, oh,
supply and demand.
We can sell 2 cases in a day. Let's try 8. Oh shit, we sold 8 cases in 2 days. Let's get 8 again. And then it's like we kept doing that, and then all of a sudden by the time we have to order for next week, we've still got 4 cases in the back. So now we're not ordering it this week. And
you mean I can order a product, air quotes, from Buffalo Trace and I can get it in? That's too good to be true.
Yeah.
It was too good to be true. Even the retailers, dude, I was just in Chicago.
But the distributor ran out of it for like a month.
Because everyone snatched it up. And then, of course, I mean, again, supply and demand. This is the supply chain issue here, right? Holy shit, this shit is flying. We need to get more into the state. These guys are out there like, yeah, it's a blended whiskey. We can produce a lot more of this shit. I need to print up more labels. That's my biggest problem right now is bottling it, probably, right? They supply more because the demand was there. The demand drops off because of what I am fairly confident in my opinion of that. I think I am absolutely spot on why this thing stopped selling. And that's it. Because even, like I said, I was just in Chicago a few weeks ago now, and they had Weller Green, which we get here for what, Nate? 28?
It is $27.99.
They had it for $60, double price on the shelf.
That's why it's on the shelf.
3 years ago, Steve and I went to Kentucky, and that first shop we went to in Louisville, Weller Green was 100, red was 150, and then all the other Wellers were 400 or 500, and they were all behind the counter, and they all had a layer of dust on them.
And that's what this shop that I was in Chicago.
Museum pricing.
Well, I mean, so they had Eagle Rare is $110. E.H. Taylor small batch $110. Antique was $90, I believe. They had the CYOP
or CYPB.
CYPB. I'm crowned heads in my head.
Yeah. Create your own path.
And that was hundreds of dollars. And I mean, this was, like I said, I think that this, and let's get down to the flavors and what you're getting for $35 down the state. But I mean, I think that this, I'll go out on a limb here. I don't think this is going to disrupt a lot of the rare stuff, but this is you're seeing the beginning of not the stock market crash. You're seeing the dips now. You're seeing that all of these articles over the last 2-3 years of Buffalo Trace, among other distilleries, pumping millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars into creating more product.
More rick houses, more distilleries, more
doubling
vats.
their capacity. Yeah.
They're doing what you said, Nate. The state was doing, the distributor ran out, so they were able to get some more out without having to sit on Eagle Rare for 10 years and try to make this production. They're like, oh shit, the reason we did this most likely is that we got a celebrity to endorse it. He's huge right now. Buffalo Trace is kind of adjacent, as you said, Kunal. We can pump this shit out, man. This is great.
It's a home run.
And I find it hard to believe that the people at Buffalo Trace and Sazerac aren't astute enough to realize that that is not why their bottles are snatched up.
They know.
You think they do? I don't know. I mean, they have to know
we
to an extent.
We can get into the Buffalo Trace.
Well, here's the thing with that.
Stuff.
Well, here's the thing with that. Like
conspiracy. I mean, it's cigars. You can say the same thing. You know, it's like if they pumped out Opus X and became regular on the shelf,
would it disappear immediately?
Eventually, it's like, oh yeah, no, we're getting. What size Opus X do you want? Well, I want the whatever. I want the 888. It's like, yeah, okay. Let me just order it. I'll be here, and probably I can get 2-day shipping if you need it. And like, oh, you can? Cool, that's great. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, it's like, hey, do you need any more of those? Nah, I got plenty of them. Oh, okay. Well, I've got it now. 10 boxes. You sure you don't need any? What if I give you a deal on them? Like, this is how this shit works.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking of
people are easy to read. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be insulting. People are easy to read on this stuff, in my opinion. As soon as there's not a secondary market, if baseball cards weren't collectible to a point where you get that unicorn that you can make a ton of money on, grown men would not be buying. There are limits to buy certain cards.
And there are some that buy them by the box.
I have someone that looks at them. They call it ripping them. Went over to Barnes & Noble. At Barnes & Noble, I can only sell you 2 to a grown man of football cards. That in the football cards, each pack has 4 cards in it, 5 maybe, and there's like 6 packs in those. He literally was having people go over to Barnes & Noble to buy 2 more, sending someone else, I'll give you money if you go over and buy 2 more. That's the bourbon market, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we have a lady that on Saturdays will show up with her mother or with her friends and give them all cash to buy bottles, and she flips them. That's what she does as a side hustle. Which,
by the way, is illegal.
It is illegal.
It is completely illegal.
But to what you were saying, and this is thinking of because for those that live in Ohio, Ohio, when it comes to liquor, is a control state. OHLQ sets the prices on everything. Retailers have no say in it whatsoever. This bottle is $34.99 on the shelf of every liquor agency in the state of Ohio. I think the issue, like if you were a state that wasn't regulated like Ohio is, I sit there and go, okay, which would you rather do? Sell a case, let's take Eagle Rare, for example. Would you rather sell a case of Eagle Rare at $45 and sell it in a day and reorder it every single week, or sit there and charge $100 and go through one case maybe a month of getting people that are coming in and buying it? It's like, do you want to sell more, or do you want to sell it less but more expensive? Like, at what point are you actually hurting yourself by charging too much for it?
If that's your only product, you're hurting yourself. If you are selling much like, let's bring up Buffalo Trace, sell the shit out of Fireball.
Right.
You're paying your bills. You're making money off everything else. Same thing with like liquor stores, cigar shops. You know what I mean? It's great to have your tough to find stuff. Because I tell you what, you can sell it at the retail price. You'd sell a lot of it, but if you're selling like Eagle Rare for $40 and you blow through your shipment, and then you don't have it on your shelf, or you're known as that shop that might have it for people that are really looking for it because someone's asking for it. You know what I mean? I remember when Blanton's was really big, probably 4 years ago. We saw that in Louisville.
Oh, yeah.
The guy walks in. He's like, I want one of the Blantons, in that glass case. And they're like, well, so those are the tougher to find ones. So they start at $400. He's like, well, where's your regular Blantons? Just like right over there, selling for $55 here in the state at the time.
It was
And
200.
It was 199. Dude didn't flinch. He's just like, all right, yeah, okay, thanks. So having that, if they were selling it for $60, they'd fly through it. They wouldn't make it. But all the while, that guy comes in, spends 200, more than double the price, right? 3 times the price. And all the while, they're selling other stuff. They're selling all other stuff. You know what I mean? That's
not
where
to
they're
us
making
that
money.
day.
Well, no, not to us that day.
Not to us that day.
But I
like
look
they had Buffalo Trace for $40, and you and I both went, nah. Even though we like it, we'd love to have it. Like,
and then we each had a cocktail, spent like $60, and we're like, well, that was shit.
But then
we could have bought a bottle of whiskey for the same price as 3 cocktails.
Well, but then I bought those 2 bottles.
Yeah.
And between those of us that were there on that trip, we drank a bottle of the 86 proof the first night we were there, and a bottle of the 100 proof the next night. Both those bottles combined were about $25.
And that was when you were in that realm of your whiskey buying, by the way. It's a different Nate. It's a different Nate Hale back then.
Well, a few months ago when I went back to Kentucky, I bought a handle of one of those bottles.
Dude, yeah. I mean,
it cost me $25.
When I go to
and guess who makes it? Buffalo Trace.
There you go.
Ancient age?
Huh?
Ancient age?
No. Very old Barton.
VOB? Oh, yeah. And Kentucky had that bottled in bond that you could, with the white label, for a long time. They discontinued it as bottled in bond. You can still find it.
It's still 100 proof, but it's no longer bottled in bond.
I have bottled in bond.
When I go to like Chicago now, it's like there's so many things like at Benny's and some of these other spots. And it's like there was a time where I'm like, oh, let me grab one of those. And then you like get to the register, like, shit, that's a lot of money. Now I'm like, all right, so they got whatever. They got like, oh, Heaven Hill bottle and bonds, but only $50 here. Oh, it's 42. That's a pretty good deal. Let me just grab one of those. I'm saving $8. But that's my whiskey buying these days right now. Like stuff I know I like, I'm gonna drink, I can get a deal on.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
You know? Let's do it. All right, Traveler whiskey. I'm gonna pour a little bit more here. Kunal, what do you think of Traveler whiskey blend number 40? Thoughts? As objective as you can be.
It's fine. It's not bad. Again, you know, if you take into consideration the hype and the this and the that, obviously it's not going to match up and all this and that. Eliminate all of that and you just look at it in a vacuum as a product. How is it as a product on the shelf in a sea of products? You know, what do you think? I wouldn't buy this personally for 35. I wouldn't buy it for 25. I have found other things that I think are more interesting to me. It's not a poor quality product, right? It's not rough and harsh, and
that's how you buy whiskey, though, right? Is interesting. It's not as much daily.
I'm at this, that's just how I am.
Yeah.
You know, even at the house, if I'm drinking, you know, every day, I never really drink more than like 1.5 ounce, 2 ounce,
right?
And then I'm done for the night. So yeah, it takes me a long time. Years ago, I bought a lot of bottles. So if I never bought another bottle of whiskey and I drank every day the way that I do, it's going to take me a while to get through all of my bottles. So I'm no longer at a point where I'm actively seeking things that I don't find to be in that, you know, on the bell curve, on the top part of that bell curve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I didn't have any bottles and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what am I going to use my purchase on or spend my money on? Even then, I've just found other things at the same or lower price points that I personally just find to be more interesting to me. Palates are different, style of what you like. You know, again, if you're someone that wants to drink this as a mixer, or you like this because it's easy enough to drink. So when you're camping and you're with your buddies, like if you want it for that reason, you can get into all this little stuff. The way I typically drink, this is not fitting anything above and beyond some of these other products that I've come to enjoy. It's not a bad whiskey, but it's not something that I'm going to actively seek.
I think it's a very, very fair review. Nate, how about you? I'm really interested.
So when
I think a lot of people out there that are listening are going to be interested to hear what Nate Hale has to think about Traveler whiskey. You purchased one bottle.
So I purchased,
and it's gone.
So I purchased a bottle of this when it first hit our shelves. Part of it was because it was new and I knew there was the Chris Stapleton tie, and I bought it to share with you, Steve, because I know you're a big Chris Stapleton fan and you're somewhat of a whiskey fan as well. So
I like all these things.
So I bought the bottle, one, to share it with you, try it myself, but also because of what I do for a living, it's a way for me to sit there and talk to people about the product.
Especially one that's so hot as far as people coming in.
After I finished that bottle, I have yet to buy another. Because
Why?
At that original $40 price point, because it just went down to $34.99 July.
I was surprised to see it at $34.99.
Yep. July 1st, state changed the price to $34.99. They're only allowed to change the price on things, I think, twice a year. That's it.
In the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yep. So it dropped to $34.99, and it still sits on the shelf. I mean, like I said, every 3 or 4 weeks we go through a case, but the people that are buying this are the people that like it.
Yeah.
Originally, to your point, Steve, the people that were buying it were people that, a lot of them were people that wanted to flip it. That's why they were buying so much. And now it's all those people are gone. It's just the people that like the product.
Who distributes this? Same people that do is it Sazerac? I mean,
so the same distributor that distributes all the Sazerac products in Ohio distributes it.
Got it.
So the way it is, so the distributor is actually the one that buys it from the distillery.
I didn't know if this was coming from a different distributor, like to the like all over.
No, it's still coming from Sazerac. Still coming from Sazerac.
Okay, go ahead.
But for that $40 price point, for me, there's a lot I can do that's better for around that same price point.
Like what?
Well, so a bottle that I just finished this past,
the Whiskey Row, like even that,
those are a little higher. Those
they've
like,
gone up.
Yeah, those are 50 to 60 for the Whiskey Row series now. But for around that 40, I mean, shit, $2 more than what this originally was. Russell's 10-year.
Yeah,
I think that's
tough to argue.
That's a better bottle. But the bottle I just finished off last Friday was Bowman Brothers Small Batch.
Yeah.
Which is literally taking new barrels of Buffalo Trace, redistilling it, and then aging it in Virginia.
Yep.
And it's $32.99.
We're gonna do a blind taste test of those two here soon, you and me.
Okay.
Just to try it.
Yeah. That's the best way to do it.
Let you finish. I think everything we've talked about has, and I'll give you my thoughts here in a second. Bowman Brothers, no one knows about it. Some people do, right? But that's on the shelf. I was looking at that because we've done, I think there's two right now on the shelf.
There's the small batch and the port barrel finish. We did the port barrel finish the week we did the podcast in the shop.
Did we not do the small batch?
Because
I brought some of that back from Chicago.
And you brought me a bottle.
I know.
That's the one I finished.
We should do, if we haven't done, we should do a blind taste test on the air with those two. I'm super curious.
So you saw
right?
Well, you saw me post the picture a couple weeks ago. I was on my back patio and I was actually doing side by side the small batch and the small batch, or the port barrel finish. I was doing those side by side. But this isn't a bad product. That initial sip that we took before we went live, talked about a little bit. It's a little corn forward initially on the palate. It does have a little bit of a creamy texture to it. Kunal nailed that one. And then there is a little bit of a spice on the back end to it. And there's something that spice kind of lingers around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
For as light as this is, you probably wouldn't expect to have that spice hanging around. But
I love that we're in a day and age that 90 proof is light.
It is to me.
Because of all the single barrel and the cast strengths.
I want everything as they made it.
I get it.
And let me play around with diluting it, because if I was curious about how this tasted out of the barrel, I'll never know because they put it down to 90. Now, granted, the argument can be made, well, they want it to be this.
Do you like Buffalo Trace?
They wanted this to be
90 proof.
I know.
Okay.
I think they wanted this to be approachable to the masses.
H. Taylor small batch.
Yeah.
And then I think they also wanted this to be approachable to people who were fans of Chris Stapleton.
100%.
That maybe weren't big whiskey drinkers.
This is for the general consumer more than it is about the whiskey guy.
The big miss here, I feel as though Chris Stapleton is big enough, not the cult following, but for a long time, you could not, to my knowledge, go to a Jimmy Buffett concert without Corona there. Then you could not go to a Jimmy Buffett concert without Landshark beer there, because that's the way it should be. He's performing. That shit needs to be there.
If I go to an Iron Maiden concert, they have the Trooper beer everywhere.
Right. So is this at Chris Stapleton's tours? I don't think it is.
I don't know. You'll find out.
Well, to your point about when we
We're
talk,
going to a concert. No,
well,
let's do it.
To your point about when we were talking briefly about Knuckle Sandwich and that whole celebrity thing, Guy Fieri pushes that. He wears the swag. He does interviews. He smokes it.
He believes in the product.
Exactly. And it doesn't have his name on it. And that's one of the reasons why, or those are all reasons why that is a brand that continues to sell, and it sells well. This, I
don't know if I follow Chris Stapleton, but I don't think he's, I don't know. He may be really like kind of getting behind it on his social media. I don't know. It reminds me of like the Long Branch thing with, McConaughey.
That was the exact thing that I thought of.
Which now his name's no longer on that bottle.
Do you know what he is behind though?
The tequila.
Right.
Yep.
And do you know what he promotes on his social media?
His
tequila.
Yep.
What brand is this tequila?
Pantalones.
Pants.
Yep. Okay.
And it's all about all of these things are him and his wife without pants on. Seriously.
That's funny.
It's all, it gets blurred out, right?
Yeah,
but they're just hanging out, like doing things, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's
funny. That's funny. Yeah, when Long Branch came
not
out,
stupid.
it was
Matthew McConaughey's not stupid.
No. I was very disappointed in the product because I genuinely really enjoy Wild Turkey distillate. I think 101, it's a prime example. I mean, I could give you a list of things I would rather buy than this. Wild Turkey 101 to me is like that benchmark really for everything. Price point, classic, good enough.
I'm with you on Wild Turkey, and also just you mentioned Old Forester earlier. 86 or especially the 100.
Yeah, that Signature 100 is still
$23.
Yeah, it was 20 for the longest.
Get out of here.
I mean, it is, I think, one of the most underrated bottles. Even Evan Williams bottled in Bond, which is a big surprise to me because I'm not a huge Evan Williams fan, but that bottled in Bond is
for a while.
Fantastic, and it was what,
$18.99, I think,
if that, right? So yeah, I mean, we can go down. I can name 100 things and round the same price point. I'd rather buy than this. But when that Long Branch came out, I thought, okay, even though it's going to be kind of gimmicky, it is a Wild Turkey product, and you could, if you had given that to me and give me no information, in no world would I ever have come up with, yes, this is a lower, easy drinking Wild Turkey product.
Yeah,
and it's $40.
You cannot.
So you can keep that. You can keep that.
I think that's like you said, like, yes, I'm interested. Like, we'll do a blind taste testing with some of the other things we're talking about in this price range. I think I'm interested to see where it goes. Once this is in your head, the history of this product, as short as it is, I'm of the opinion that people can't get past it, the label, and it is a backfire. This was supposed to be something that was kind of cool, hit the country music fans,
right?
Kind of like the Long Branch, right?
They could have done with this what Crown has done with some of their flavors, like the salted caramel. That's a fall release.
Yeah,
we just had the blackberry release back in March, and people went nuts for that. Still get people asking for it, even though we haven't seen it on our shelves in 4 months. There's that initial hit. That's the way the peach used to be.
Sure.
People used to, I mean, I remember one time going to the Giant Eagle down the street from the Tinderbox, and they actually had a sign saying on the plexiglass, no Crown Royal peach.
I know.
And
I know.
The lady behind the counter got a phone call transferred to her department, and and it's kind of like Tinderbox on the holidays. She answered the phone and goes, Giant Eagle Liquor, we do not have Crown Royal peach. Thank you. Like,
missed something on this conversation with you and Ray here.
Ray said OHLQ is liquor Nazis.
Oh, that's the Burning Books reference.
Well,
all right.
Like I said, working in the industry now, I realize OHLQ is not the problem.
No, they've actually helped out a lot in the state of Ohio, in my opinion, especially
yeah.
more recent the year or so.
Oh yeah, the last few years the stuff that the state's been able to get in. I mean, last year, Willet once a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Once a quarter, we got Willet in. Now, not only is those 4 Willet products on an end cap at my store, we can order it. You can buy as much of it as you want. And we also have 1, 2, 4 other Willet products on the shelf as
Drum
well.
came into Ohio for the first time. I was like,
Johnny
wow.
Drum, Pure Kentucky. We did Pure
Then
Kentucky.
everything went up. And like Rowan's Creek, I love it. Went up in price. Like
Things are, I think, sometimes a little higher in Ohio than Kentucky when it comes to just strict across the board bourbon pricing.
more often, it's
retail.
less.
At
Most
retail.
often, it's less though. I
But
will say.
people also don't realize, and this is something I didn't realize until I actually learned it fairly recently, is the state doesn't look at each individual product and choose how much to sell it for. They look at a category and they have a percent markup for each category.
Mm.
The price is actually set by what the distributor sells it to the state for.
Right.
So if the distributor charges more for this product than that one, the state's going to do the exact same markup on both of those, say, bourbons.
Yeah.
And now you have this one at this price and this one at this price.
Right.
But the state has the same percentage margin.
Huh.
It's the distributor that's charging more. And that could
We
be
are
because the
not-
distributor paid more for it too.
And I don't know what Ann Dimmick would say or anyone from OHLQ would say, but I don't. Sadly, I don't think we're that far off in a state-controlled liquor agency that they will do exactly what the independent liquor stores have done outside of controlled states. They're going to say, "Fuck it, Eagle Rare is $100." You want to?
That'd be interesting to see what happens with that product then.
And we'll get to, I have it up there because I want to keep moving forward here, but there is 2 sides of that. The negative would be is that it slows down the sales, what they're able to do with it, right? The other negative that could be is that you completely disrupt the whole secondary market, or you escalate it, and now all of a sudden, like an Eagle Rare is $100, secondary now is $200, which I don't think would happen.
No, I don't think the secondary.
I
is
think you
really-
need the secondary to keep this bourbon craze going.
Yeah.
Sadly.
for certain things. It's definitely driving a lot of products and a lot of.
Look what happened with this bottle. It's a flop because there's no secondary, and they marketed it as Buffalo Trace. Or through the channels, it became Buffalo Trace. In my opinion. I don't know. The rating, whiskey, cigar, and the pairing. The best is 10. We have 3 different ratings. Kunal, we'll start with you. So 10 being the best. Please rate the whiskey, which is Traveler Whiskey, the cigar, which is Aganorsa Leaf Anniversario Connecticut, and the pairing of the 2, which I already feel like I know what the pairing is going to be. But go ahead with the whiskey, then the cigar, and then the pairing.
I give the whiskey a 7. I don't think, like I said, it's not a bad product. It's not a product that, to me, is better than anything else in the same-ish or remotely
drinking, right?
same-ish. Yeah, it's easy to drink. I'm not, like, offended by it. If I was at someone's house and they're like, this is what I have, I'm like, all right, it's enjoyable.
We have a glass, yeah.
I'm not going out of my way to pick it out.
What else you have?
I think that's the nicest. I'm not going to shit all over it. It's not a terrible
No,
product.
it's
I think a 7's a fair rating from you, based on what you said is your buying, habits, if you will, of
Yeah.
why you buy bottles of whiskey, why you have your collection,
Right.
all that stuff. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I'll give it a 7. Cigar to me is a 9. Out of the Anniversario series, this is going to sound maybe slightly detrimental, but it's not. Out of the 3, the Corojo is like my favorite cigar, period. So it's definitely not overtaking that by any means. I'm still impressed and enjoy the cigar every time I have it. I would say in general, not as the Aganorsa rep, but just in the line of things, this is not like in the top 3, for example, of ones that I reach for the most. I love the Validation Corojo. I like the Anniversario Corojo in the Maduros. I typically lean towards the Signature because it's such a different characteristic. So, and I love the Validation Connecticut. It's been one of my all-time favorite cigars. So I don't like this.
It's a little more oomph than this, I feel like.
Yeah. I don't like this more than some other things, but by no means am I not impressed by this every time I light it up. It just fits fewer of my moods frequency in terms of frequency than some of the others and how they stand out. But it's an incredible blend to me. It smokes great every single time. I've smoked my fair share of these, validated them.
I love that.
Yeah, validated many of these, and every single time I have, it's been a great experience. I think it really surprises a lot of people because it's not what they're expecting when they see the word Connecticut on the cigar. I think the price point's reasonable and fair for a above average cost, more premium product. It's still under $20. It's regular production. You can get your hands on it very easily. There's no requirements for a shop to be able to bring the cigar in. You don't have to be a top key account, or you don't have to order 10 boxes of this to get one of those. We don't have any of those kind of stipulations in place.
Very relevant to the conversation we're having tonight about
availability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what that means for your opinion on a product. So yeah, this is an easy 9 to the cigar for me. Pairing,
just do it. Just do it.
No.
Just no.
Not for me.
The out of 10 is a no. 1, 5, 4, 7.
Sure, 1. I mean, I just won't do it. I have no reason to do it.
Sorry. Well, I mean,
if I want to enjoy,
you do because you're on the show.
If
but
I want to enjoy the cigar,
whatever.
This is not what I'm drinking to enjoy the cigar. If I want to have a cigar with this, I'll pick something else. I think it detracts.
There are better pairings out there, is what you're saying.
I think it detracts from my enjoyment of the cigar, which is
Fair.
Not my intent.
Fair. Nate, any no's in your ratings tonight?
No.
Oh, look at that.
Wait a second.
But also,
but
I also realize, like, lately, I think I've just been like starting my rating system a little high recently. Up until recently, like everything starts like at a certain point and then either goes up or down from there. So last week, that's why I kind of changed. I was like, that's why my rating
reverted back.
That's why last week I'm like, a little bit.
I think you reverted back
a little bit. Last week, I was like, I tried to be nice.
If you want to dog this cigar, just forget Kunal's here. That's
no,
fine. Like,
starting with the whiskey.
I'm wearing an Iron Maiden shirt. Technically, I could just be anybody. I have no affiliation with anyone.
Starting with the whiskey, because last week it was funny. I'd given it an original rating. I was like, well, but that's kind of, and he's like, no, just be honest. I immediately went like 6.5 on that bottle, but it's because I didn't like that mash bill from that distillery, the one that we had 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I know.
I gave that one a 6.5. I'll do 6.75 on this one. I like this more than that bottle that we had 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
but just technically.
But again, I bought this bottle. I drank this bottle. I haven't bought one since. It's not bad. It's just there are other things either in this price point or less that I'd rather buy. Or there are other products where I'm like, you know what? This bottle's $20 more than Traveler, but it blows Traveler out of the water. I'll spend extra $20 because of that.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a solid bottle. There's people that like it. It still sells. You also brought up like being a decent mixer bottle. I think because of the texture it has to this.
I think it would be.
Yeah.
I think it would be.
And I know there are people that do that. So it's a solid product, but not something that I have really enjoyed. Even that first bottle,
right?
That first bottle is like, yeah, I was expecting a little better. I was expecting more, but again, that was kind of the hype built up around that product.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They got one bottle sale out of it.
Okay, cigar.
Cigar. 8.5 on the cigar.
Ooh.
I do enjoy the
9
cigar.
and 8.5.
It's a solid smoke.
I think that's higher than he gave the Maduro, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember.
I don't remember exactly, but I think it was.
It's a pretty high rating
8
from.
5.
That's a pretty high rating, regardless. But from Nate, I think that is a high rating on the cigar, on anything.
And
really.
especially
8.5.
again, as someone that, and I know this about you, typically prefer a certain type of cigar. This is not in that wheelhouse.
Let's introduce. We
But
haven't
I
really
also-
talked about. We talked a lot about this bottle, but let's talk about what is the MSRP of this Toro.
16.
Yeah.
16, 17.
Okay.
Depending on which state you live in, how much of their
Oh, the tobacco tax,
State-
but yeah, I
yeah,
mean, let's
state-
call it around $16.
state specific theft, depends.
Oh, I like that.
State specific theft.
Let's not get into that.
That's on the second part.
Did you guys see what the topic is for tonight?
No.
And then
Little preview there.
for my pairing,
Okay.
I agree with Kunal. This is not a great pairing. Going whiskey to the cigar, almost can't taste the cigar,
That's why I made that.
which is
face.
weird. I mean, we talk about how light
That's
how light of a bottle this is, and the cigar gets lost. Now, I did notice, like, if I took a draw from the cigar and then went to the whiskey, the light flavor that was there initially on the whiskey was a little bit heavier, but again, it's a little bit more that kind of corn water.
Oh, yours is gone.
Yeah,
Okay.
It was just.
I just didn't know if anyone had taken a sip of the whiskey and then did a retro ale.
That
Stands up.
is the retro. To your point, it's a lot more zing.
Yeah,
in
oh,
the
yeah.
retro than the flavor profile.
Yeah, no,
of the
yeah,
product.
yeah.
So 6 on the pairing.
Generous.
Traveler whiskey. I love the concept of what has happened in the current state of the bourbon and whiskey world with this bottle. This is a sign of the times. I think this is a bottle that, if it was a celebrity bottle and didn't really have anything tied behind it. So I'm thinking, not with going too far down the information available, Heaven's Door, Redneck Riviera, trying to think of some other celebrity ones out there that are not
on the
tied,
bourbon-ish side.
not tied into a famous, they didn't tote the distillery it came from.
Oh,
Right? Not the Long Branch, right?
Right.
Not the Wild Turkey, not Buffalo Trace.
what about blackened?
So Blackened, I think, was interesting because that was there are some ties to some really solid whiskey background, I think, but
Yeah.
it wasn't hyped up. Wasn't hyped up. Heaven's Door, not hyped up. Redneck Riviera is another country guy. That's Rich from Big and Rich.
John Rich.
Yeah.
You've never, I mean,
No, yeah, I've seen that. I'm trying to remember the bottle. Yeah,
you took two powerhouses on this bottle. You got Chris Stapleton, who is arguably one of the best, most popular country artists right now.
I think he's just in general a big star in the
Big
music
star,
scene,
right.
period, not beyond country.
So big star. And Buffalo Trace is on there. Fine print, but it's on there. I'm going to give this bottle 7.5. I think this is, I agree with Kunal ways that this is fine.
It's fine. It's aggressively average.
Aggressively average, even better way to say fine. This is something that
Another way to say it.
dude,
It's aggressively average.
I got to say, like, Kunal, I know you're not drinking as much as we are, but I've seen
gotta
even Nate. I know, but I've even seen Nate grab that bottle more than
Right.
he has sometimes with others. This is not a judgment thing.
Right.
That just is a statement to the fact that for now $35, this is a sipper. This is easy drinker. All right, guys, 90 proof. It's not bad. It's not amazing. It's not blowing me away.
Right.
If you throw the name Buffalo Trace behind this one, in a sense, and this is 35, call it 40 before, and Eagle Rare is available right next to it. I'm buying Eagle Rare every time. If this lived up not to the hype, but to what the hype was alluding to, and it was $40. Nate, when you bought your first one, if this did not exceed the expectations of the supply, and it's like, oh, Carfagna's, we got 2 cases of Traveler in this week. It's been like 2 months. I think you would have bought another bottle because you can't get it. Not just you, other people. I think that if this had the same availability as other Buffalo Trace products, that hype would have continued. The secondary market would have continued, and no one would give a fuck about how it tasted.
Yeah.
That's it. Bottom line. I think Weller Green still will sell, not as fast, but it'll still sell.
Yeah, Elmer T.
Because worst case scenario, I can throw it out there. I can make $10 on it.
Elmer T is a really good, solid bottle. If it was on the shelf all day, every day at $35, I think there's a lot of people that would get it. But I also think there's a larger percentage of people that wouldn't be buying it because they can't flip it for $250. Like
100%. That's where I'm at with this. So I think it's a solid mixer. I think there's some merit behind this bottle. It is Buffalo Trace adjacent. I think this is not a bad juice. I think there's some merit that has been lost because of the way that the bourbon industry has gone, in my opinion. That's the way I look at it. The cigar 875. I think this is great. I think this is a very, very good Connecticut. I actually enjoy this better than more than the Validation series.
Yeah.
This is smoother to me. I said it earlier.
Right.
I think the Connecticut is, if you want to throw this is not your grandfather's Connecticut, do it on the Validation series because that's got some punch to it. It's got a little, say, bite, not in a negative way, but it's got a little bit of a
you notice it's there.
Yeah, this one
being a background
cigar. This cigar, the Anniversario Connecticut. What I like about this one is that if you don't retrohale, this is creamy. This is $2 cheaper than even like a Monte Cristo White series that sells off the like crazy, right? So
because it's a smooth, very
so easy. You start retrohaling this, now all of a sudden you got some pepper. You're like, oh, there's the Nicaragua. This is something here. There's some depth to this cigar, so I think it's a fantastic cigar. And I think for $16, give or take, I think this is it's a wonderful cigar. I think your branding behind it has done wonders, at least from my vantage point with the retail side of things. Is that when you look at that blue box, 10 count still?
Yeah, 10 count.
10 count, even on the shelf with the white. You got the blue, the silver. I mean, this is a great looking cigar, and it looks like a higher end cigar. And in this current market, when you have things like Monte Cristo, you have Cohibas, you guys are going up. This is your flagship cigar currently.
Yep.
And I think you're going up against some big boys that over the period, this has been out for a year or so, year and a half.
This particular one has been around for about a year.
You went from a limited edition cigar from someone that you were making your name. Now I think Aganorsa Leaf is really competing against companies like Placencia, where you sell your tobacco, you make cigars for other people, other companies.
Right.
But you have really rebranded in the last 5-ish years, saying Aganorsa Leaf. So this being your flagship for $16, being less than some other cigars that within the last 5 years when you rebranded were less than this.
Mm-hmm.
That's a statement, I think, right there. So pairing them with you guys, the pairing right now, 6.5, 7. I mean, this is not a great pairing. I will say the cigar stands up if you do a retrohale. That's why I asked, Nate, sure. I looked over there. You were done with your cigar. I think the retrohale really amps this cigar up to stand up to this. This whiskey, I think, can do fine, again, using that term, fine with a lot of cigars, but doing something where you have a creaminess on the palate itself, it does a disservice to the cigar. So not the greatest pairing, I would say.
Right there with you.
All right, guys, long part one, but I enjoyed the conversation. I really did.
We got a lot of good things to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. So cheers, Nate. No? Thought you did it.
No.
Okay. Cheers, part one.
Cheers, guys.
Stay tuned for part two. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Be right back with the topic of control. Bathroom breaks, anyone?
I feel like that
Standing
went. I feel like that went long because we'd been bottling up a lot.
Bro,
Talk about this product.
I know. And normally when we have the cigar company on, it's all about the tobacco.
But there's
Too much.
For the last 6 months that this product's been around, I was not expecting when this first came out like that kind of a just sudden. I mean, it dropped quick.
I stand by my opinions of that.
Do we have a second cigar?
Yes, he's got some, I think. HVC.
Okay.
We don't make, and this is a word I use a lot because I find that in our blends, they're always balanced. And I really enjoy that aspect because I don't want something to be the exact same beginning to end. I like when there's a few things going on because I think that keeps your interest. You're like, oh, what is that? Oh, right. That's got a little bit in there. So it's not a spicy, bold Connecticut cigar, and it's not just creamy smooth with nothing else going on. So I like that aspect of the cigars that we make. We don't make mild cigars. That, I was going to kind of mention it, but it wasn't really all that important. But what is now the validation, the blend hasn't changed. So it was the same as that Casa Fernandez, Connecticut, well before the new wave of not your grandfather's Connecticut started.
It's a true Nicaraguan Connecticut, dude.
I can't say for certain we were the first out of the relevant of this and that, whatever. But I mean, we were very early on before a lot of these other companies started jumping on to making stronger Connecticut. We don't make a mild cigar, period. JFR Connecticut is not mild. The validation of Connecticut is not mild. This is not mild.
So this is in the middle here, but we should definitely keep going here. I don't think you can make a true mild that would
still taste like us.
Well, I just think that I don't think that Ray says that you're running the show in the background because he can't hear you, but I don't think you can't replicate a Dominican mild versus like with a Nicaraguan mild. You can't have an Ecuadorian Connecticut with Dominican tobacco. You can't have a true Connecticut. You can't do any of that stuff, I don't think, with Nicaraguan filler and binder and stay super mild.
Right. And if you do, then why are you necessarily using and making an emphasis?
You want to try
this is Nicaraguan tobacco.
That's Scott's
tastes like nothing. That's what Honduran and Dominican
Just doesn't exist.
Mild cigars are
MGC high rye.
Just doesn't
High rye
exist.
bourbon.
Tell me when you're ready to go here. Sure.
Let me get the other one.
The HVC, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, take it.
Oh, I don't think I told him. Do you like this?
Okay.
It's now available in Texas.
Texas?
My coworker who watches the podcast now, they sell it right down the street from his house.
There you go.
So
There's still a little bit in that bottle. Go ahead.
Ray, we are not running a podcast in the background. We are just in between. He's going to grab right now another brand, well, to his terms, adjacent to Aganorsa Leaf, HVC.
It is Aganorsa adjacent.
Yeah.
Hot cake.
Hotcakes. They sell like hotcakes.
There it is.
Oh.
They do. You can't call a cigar hotcakes if it's not selling like hotcakes. I mean, you could, but
Who wants some flapjacks?
it stems from pan caliente. That's their kind of phrase for that.
Welcome back to the Bourbon ABS podcast, everyone.
My face?
I'm going to do it again.
Nope.
Go ahead. Welcome back to the Bourbon BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 232 or 323. What is
There
it?
it is. 323.
323. We got Kunal. Yeah.
Halo.
We got Kunal from HVC,
Yes.
right? We're going to switch gears here. HVC cigars,
That was
which
a true
is
statement.
Aganorsa Leaf adjacent, if you will. We got the hot cake Maduro.
Yes, the
Yeah.
original hot cakes.
I like HVC.
You guys have had a run-in with Rainier. And
Rainier?
had some experience in the past with his lines.
So yeah, Rainier Lorenzo.
Yes.
Yeah,
Rainier
so
Lorenzo.
he is the founder of HVC. Met him when Brian and I were down in Miami, in the area at your guys' Miami factory warehouse, now more of a warehouse, right? And he happened to have a desk upstairs.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was at a desk upstairs when we were there. We were blending the BS Gold at the time, and we were doing a line extension. And that trip, we expanded the BS Gold line, which now we have parted ways with Aganorsa on the BS Gold, but good. I mean, obviously we carry a lot of you guys' stuff. But that trip, we came up with the BS Silver. So it was a successful trip, met a lot of people down there, including the founder of HVC. So the hot cake Maduro is what we're going to be smoking in part 2 here. So thank you for bringing that.
Absolutely.
We are still sipping on the Traveler whiskey, which part 1 I enjoyed. And then in the intermission, Nate, you absolutely hit it on the head. Like, we were long in part 1 because this has been, as you said, bottled up for 6 months.
Like, you and I have shared a lot of opinions and
On this
talked about
bottle.
this.
Without drinking this bottle on the podcast.
Yes.
So, yeah, part 2, we go beyond the BS. This is going to be a conversation about life. So we do things a little differently here. Obviously, the first part went over an hour and a half. We talked about Traveler whiskey. We talked about the Aganorsa Leaf Anniversario Connecticut, and we reviewed those, talked a lot about Kunal, the company, everything else. And then we gave our opinion, a long-winded opinion of the Traveler whiskey.
We were very opinionated.
Very true. And the topic tonight is control. I was going to name the topic tonight, control what you can or control what you think you can control. But I think control in general is going to be a better topic tonight. I don't necessarily want to go down the political route, but this is what fueled it, is because we've kind of alluded to it. I've talked about it a little bit, is that we are in for another roller coaster here in the United States, and also it extends around the world right now. And we're not alone. There's a lot of things going on, obviously around the world with different elections and different countries dealing with issues of similar things that we're dealing with. But the whole world's watching right now. And the one thing that I will say on this topic in that light is, I encourage everyone that if you have the ability to vote, do your research, watch and learn all sides of it. Don't stay in your echo chamber, and do your duty, in my opinion, to vote, and realize that you can't control it. All the things that you can control are exactly it. Know what you can control and know what you cannot control, and live your life accordingly. And that's what I think the topic tonight should be. We talked about, obviously, I heard the word control several times. We're in a state-controlled liquor, agency where you can't necessarily control the way things sell. Whether you're in sales, you can't control. You can only control certain things to certain limitations from a job standpoint. Certainly from a relationship and how you live your day-to-day life. I'll kick it to you guys and say, with the pretty volatile environment that we're going into right now in this country, I think, again, as always, but I think it's going to be exponentially a little bit greater, as we're going to be tested on a day-to-day basis, just based on interactions, on how your feelings and emotions are with what's going on with leading up to an election, with how do you stay in control of your day-to-day life and not let yourself, in a sense, get consumed in things you cannot control. I think that is the state of day-to-day life that we are living in right now, is that people in general are getting consumed in things that they cannot control. They can do their part.
Completely
They can
agree.
educate themselves. They can. There are even the other side of it. There's even the other side of it that there are people out there that they're so scared to make their opinion known that they don't even want to impact anyone else because they're afraid that it might jeopardize other aspects of their life. Politically,
job,
relationships, everything. You can't necessarily all the time, in certain people's opinions, you can't put your opinion or your judgment or your viewpoint out there because you might be looked at differently.
I get eviscerated by the peanut gallery or whatever,
You
right?
can't put a social media post out there. You can't say to someone, I can't. I do. You can't honk your horn because someone did something wrong on the road because you're worried that something
They
might
just shoot
escalate.
you. Yeah. It's not an uncommon happenstance, right?
That's the topic tonight.
Well, I think we in our country, we put us as individuals. Yes, we can do our part. Like we can vote for certain things or we can protest certain things, but we also forget that even if you elect whoever you want to vote for it, once that person gets in the office, they don't have to listen to you.
Correct.
They're gonna do, and it's a sad state of political affairs, and this happens across the entire board. I'm not picking on one side or the other. It happens across the entire board. Once those people get into office, a lot of it becomes, all right, what's best for me?
Politicians didn't do what they said they were going to do.
Yeah, shocker there.
Yeah.
Wait, that happens?
That's why we just
Not
take
in
them outside and
America.
shoot them.
Never.
But no, I mean, because once that person gets into a position of power, like now there's other powers above us that have more control over them than we do in this country. The way things with
So for
forget.
I think for frame of conversation here is what do we have control over in your everyday life? Let's
So,
break it down here.
let's
strip it back here. What do you have control over in your day-to-day life? Because I think I'm of the opinion that there is a great percentage of the population of this country and obviously across the globe that a lot of your mental capacity and your energy is taken up by things that you cannot control.
I agree 100%.
And that is, to me, very disheartening. I think that is very misleading on enjoying what you can enjoy.
I think it's also self-destructive.
Okay.
You
What can you control?
can
So
control
I think
your-
Can you control handing that bottle over to me real quick?
I think so. I mean, you
Physical,
can,
motor skills. Oh, look at that. Just flawless.
I didn't even want to do it.
A little weird at the end. A little weird at the end.
Mind controlled me to
It's
do
all
that.
right.
I
It's
didn't
all
even
right.
have
That's all good.
control of my faculties there. That was weird.
You even froze the feed.
no. So I think people have the ability to control the attitude that they get up with every morning, the attitude that they approach every day,
That's a tough one
the
too.
attitude they approach life. I think what makes it tough, though, is they give that control to too many outside factors.
Absolutely.
And
Give up that control that they
And so, like,
actually have.
that goes back to something that happened for me many years ago, where a very close friend of mine, we were in school together, graduated together, we were friends all through college and after. And then this person got so negative on social media.
Yeah.
Everything I was seeing. And it was having a negative impact on me because I would see what this person would say and I would vehemently disagree with it. I wouldn't start a Facebook war or get into shouting matches with that person. It was just the fact that I would read it and there was a lot of things that would piss me off. It would put me in a bad mood. I'd have issues going to sleep. because my mind's just racing about whatever that issue was.
Do you think it was part of your mind racing? Sorry, because you really wanted to express yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
So I want to
there were
introduce
part
that.
of that where I absolutely
You
wish
were
that
playing
person.
through that argument or the points you wanted to make in your mind.
I feel as though I am embarking on that journey of being an old man. And it's not, I still want to have a little bit of a filter and a little bit of a brake pedal. And Nate, I'm trying to really kind of point this at what you're saying, because I'm not going to necessarily shoot from the hip all the time and just say, but
You have to put your emotions.
You
in check.
couldn't. You had to put your emotion in check. But how severe are you pushing on that brake pedal that it's for them and putting yourself
in a bad state?
Right. So when you said I'd be all amped up, all that stuff, I wouldn't be able to sleep.
Yeah.
And that's what brought this up, is that I'm getting that point, and I what's the better course of action there? That you lose sleep, that you get you get less enjoyment out of life because you see this? Do you let it go, or do you say something? What can you control? Because there's not a right answer, because I know what you did, and I've done it a lot, is that you don't say anything.
Didn't say anything, and
I
just let that relationship go.
Okay.
I don't interact with that person. I don't see that person. I haven't spoken to that person in 7 or 8 years.
So you don't give it the mental space, right?
That, because I realized, and this is something that I've dealt with in the past with other issues in life, I realized that person was living rent-free in my mind. And when I finally realized that, I said, fuck that. That's not happening anymore. And I cut that away. I would love to have a friendly friendship with that person. I don't know that it's possible. And
did you ever try that route?
Nope.
So these are the
because I knew that
the fork in the road. These are the choose your own adventure book, right?
Yep.
This is it right now. I can, if you want to, not say anything. Turn to page 49, right? If you want to get into it, turn to page 56. If you want to say, hey, I want to continue a friendship and I don't want to address this bothers me, let's not have this a part of our friendship, if that's possible, turn to this page, right? Yeah. I mean, there are different ways you can handle these types of situations.
And the thing is,
social media or otherwise,
that person's also never reached out to me during that time either. That person's never talked to me, never reached out to me.
They're choosing their own adventure.
Exactly.
Great books.
They chose theirs. I chose mine. And when I made the decision to sever that connection, there was such a weight lifted off of me. And so that's when I realized, that's what I can control. I can control what I allow to affect me. So, even when it comes to day-to-day work stuff, there were times in the past that something would happen at work, and occasionally it might still happen.
Always going to happen. There's always going to be.
There might be something that happens at work, and because either something that was said or something that was done, where it just kind of eats away for a little while. That person may have no clue that what they did or what they said is eating at me, and I can either say something to them or I can move on.
But do you really move on?
And try do what?
Do you really move on? How hard is that for you to move on?
It takes a little bit. It takes a little while. It takes a few days.
People hold on to shit.
Oh, I still.
There's no rent free when you're still reacting to it the next morning.
Yeah,
the next morning.
There's still one person that 25 years later I still hold a grudge against.
25.
Yeah. Because that person person was directly responsible for having a very negative impact on my life and my mother's life.
Got it.
And so that was one of those where I was like, you know what? I'll be polite to you if we ever see each other in public, but I I don't care what happens to you at all. I'm not going to hope that bad things happen to that person because that's not a good mindset either.
You're not really burying it down necessarily. You're basically,
But I stopped giving a
you're
shit.
prioritizing,
Yeah.
right? The emotion.
I just stopped giving a shit about all this other stuff and be like, okay, that person thinks that way or has that opinion. I am obviously, no matter what I say, no matter what argument I lay down, facts, opinions, feelings, whatever it is, I'm not going to change that person's mind. I'm not going to try to.
That's a really tough thing, I think. And Mike, I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Sometimes I look at it myself. It can be a very callous way.
It's because you even said like, so 25 years later, it is, I think, very, very tough to truly just say, it's easier to say it, but to truly live your life in the fact that you don't care. Because it's super, for me sometimes, and I think maybe for you, Nate, and Kunal and Mike and anyone else listening, you want to be able to control how they think to a point, to make everything better. You want to fix it, right? So like that situation, you're saying that it's like, yeah, there's still 25 years later. I'm still, yes, I let it go, but it's still there.
I mean,
until we talk about it on a podcast.
Yeah. I don't think about that person.
That.
It doesn't come up, every now and then I might go, oh yeah, that person still did that.
It's in the archive.
It's tucked away in there,
Yeah.
but that's all it ever goes. It doesn't keep
That's
me
good.
up. It doesn't stop me from going to sleep or doing my day-to-day stuff. And the more that kind of stuff happens, the more I kind of feel myself kind of, all right, like not be a complete recluse, but I'm very careful and very selective about who I choose to spend my time engaging with.
You value your time.
I value my time. I also value the people who choose to spend time with me as well.
Sure. Most importantly, who you choose to spend time with.
Yeah.
Mike, what'd you say? You made a comment there. I was just going to say.
Yeah. I think Ray's referring to my comment. And this has actually been kind of like a hot button.
You turn that up a little bit.
In my personal life with some of the people I've been. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hold just a little closer.
Is that better?
Just talk, project. You're a big guy.
Talk to us.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just pretend you're talking to us all the way on the side of the garage.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm a bad Sean tonight.
Sean projects very well.
All right.
Okay,
Go on.
yes, It's just with this whole like control topic, right? It's been kind of a hot button in my personal life with some of the people I've been working with too, kind of dealing with similar things. And my belief, as much as I'm getting disagreed with, it's people lack the courage to be their authentic self based on how the outside world's going to perceive them. And
Put your comment up on the screen just so you know.
And what I kind of mean by that is like no one's got a gun to your head saying that you can't be your authentic self. Like you do that to yourself. And more people are afraid of what's going to happen in response. And it could be losing a job, having a bad relationship with a family member. Maybe it's a relationship. At the end of the day, like you are responsible for your own happiness. If you're feeling suppressed because you can't be yourself, it's usually the cost of being your authentic self is the problem. It's usually because of that. And for whatever reason, people electively choose to suppress their true self because they're too invested. Like maybe it's like, oh, I don't want to lose a job. Like, oh, I've been married for 25 years and I don't want to screw anything up. Like people put themselves in positions where they've allowed themselves to be suppressed for so long to where they feel like they have to be that way and you don't. And it's your choice if you want to be yourself or be suppressed. It's your choice. Like no one's got a gun to your head. And I do believe more people are afraid to do what it takes to be authentic so they internally can feel better, so they themselves can show up as their most authentic self. And a lot of times that means you're going to lose friends, you could lose family, maybe it is a career change, but you have to decide, is your own internal happiness worth it?
I agree with what you're saying there, and I also think that at some point there are people, if you're being your authentic self, sometimes you have to have a little bit of self-reflection that maybe
100%.
I'm not saying that it's all the time, because sometimes you do hold on to a
100%.
job, a relationship,
Yeah.
you hold on to that stuff because you're worried that you know, the fear of the unknown or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes if you have a repeating behavior in your life, or repeated sequence of events,
Mm-hmm.
that the self-reflection might be sometimes that you have to start reflecting on what your authentic self is. You know,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, that's a good.
if you keep oh man, this job sucks, and then like, you know, 2 years later, this job sucks, and it's like either you didn't find the right job, or
Common denominator.
yeah, or I had employees back in the day in my previous career where it was just like, oh yeah, my partner was moving, right? You know, so
Right.
it's like, yeah, this guy sucks, you know, and all that stuff. And it's like, you start actually talking to the other person, and then the next other person, and the next other person. You're like, common denominator, right? You're like, we might need to switch gears on you, because you keep saying that your partner on the truck isn't worth it, is worthless, is a problem.
But you've been on
People
5
don't like
trucks.
working with you.
Yeah.
So let's work on some things where we can
Mhm.
steer your authentic self to
Yeah.
different things. But that's a great point.
I mean, just your internal values are going to change over time. Like that's like saying, like, Steve, go back to your 15-year-old self. If you're 100% authentic at 15 years old versus now, it's probably very different, right?
Same. No,
Same.
yeah, you're absolutely.
You know what I mean? So,
My
like,
adolescent
of
self,
course,
same
like,
person as my
reflections and-
40-some-year-old self. Absolutely. No, I know everything.
I mean, we're going to continue to grow and learn as we age. Like,
You're
no
right.
matter what, we're going to become wise. Well, hopefully, become wiser as we get older. You know, but that is a big part of it. But at the same time, it's just being authentic is also what helps you to learn and understand like where you're going
Who
in
you
life
are.
too.
You're authentically evolving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I see my
Exactly.
old Facebook posts, and it's like memory from 12 years ago, and I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that. That's probably a good sign, because you probably shouldn't agree unanimously and be like, yes, I would do the same exact things at 30 years old as I was, you know, thinking and doing at 16 and 17, right?
Right.
So, yeah, no, I
in
understand what you're
that
saying.
regard.
Yeah,
I think what you can control, and you brought it up, is you can control your attitude. You can control your response and your reactions to other people's things that are happening as well. This was a tough lesson for me to learn. You know, growing up, I had a lot of bullied in elementary school, didn't get along with a lot of this and that. And one of the things that my mom always told me that I could never comprehend was, well, you know, they're doing it to get a reaction out of you. So if you just don't react, they'll stop bothering you.
bullshit.
All right.
Right.
This is absolute 100% bullshit.
This is the mom trying to tell me, basically teaching me a lesson of, you know, you can't control these other people, but you can control how it affects you. If you're going home thinking about it and this and that, like, you're really the one suffering, not
That's
them.
that rent-free space that
They're
Nate
not-
was alluding to.
they're not-
We're
right.
honing
They're not
in
the ones
here.
suffering. You are, because you're angry and you're upset. And yeah, it's not to
they,
say that
they couldn't see that, but it was happening outside of school.
and it's
They
not.
couldn't see the impact it was having because I wouldn't react the way I wanted to react
Sure.
at the time.
Sure.
It was then later, all of a sudden, the emotion of that would come out because I knew if I gave into the emotion that I had at that time, I wouldn't be able to control myself.
Right.
Right. All right. All right.
And it's you know, it doesn't mean that it bounces off of you and it doesn't affect you or impact you in, you know, lots of different ways. And sure, of course it does. But ultimately, again, what can you control? I can't control whether that person feels the need to make fun of me or mock me or make my life miserable for the time that we're at school. But eventually it got to a point as I started getting, you know, older into high school, and I just go, you know, I'm not going to be able to change them and their opinions or whatever it is. So just stop putting stock into giving them credence and giving them value, because then
Wow.
it's impacting you. It's taking up your emotional space. It's taking up your mental capacity, which
Energy.
regardless of whether it is positive, negative, you know, this, that, serious, political, religious, not serious things, there's a limit to all of that. And so if it's occupying your mind, ultimately you're the one that's suffering and losing as a result of that. So yeah, I mean, and all kinds of things. I'll see things I disagree with, or people will say some things that, maybe I want to say some things about it. And you have to kind of do a cost analysis. Like, is it worth it? Is anything positive going to come out of this? Am I going to be able to change what this scenario is? Probably not. All right, just, don't say anything about it. But then I'm also not going home and just like running through those arguments in my head with people that are ultimately not important at the end of the day. Now, when it comes down to like your family relationships and, your parents and your siblings, your significant others, obviously it's a little bit different because, you're around that all the time. And maybe those relationships are a little more important for you to try to navigate beyond just an unfiltered shoot from the hip kind of way. And so you have to kind of learn how you're going to navigate that while not being disingenuous, but also not, blowing everything up with a scorched earth policy type of stuff either. Right. So, ultimately, no matter what it is, you can always control the one thing that you can have control over is your reaction and your response, and kind of how you allow it to impact you and what your outlook and your emotions are going to be. Just in general, that's the one thing that you will always be able to have control over. It's not easy, but you do.
I think as we grow older, right? We grow up. I mean, you bring up, the school age stuff, right? I mean, you don't have control where you live. You don't control like what school you go to most of the time. You have control over your day-to-day actions, and you're still trying to figure yourself out. Now, I think we're always still trying to figure ourselves out. But I had a response when I was younger. I was just kind of like go with the flow type of a person, right? Like I wasn't a jock, I wasn't a nerd, I wasn't like all the classifications in between. I was just like I had friends kind of all over. I was just I don't want to say like I was forgettable, but I was kind of like, yeah, no, he's fine, right? Like kind of like the whiskey you were saying earlier, right? You're like, yeah, it's fine, right? Like, yeah, he's cool. He's
gloriously
opinion.
Average.
Yeah.
Sort of. But
no one had a strong negative opinion or, whatever it was.
What I will say is that, as we get older, being your authentic self and what you can control is your day-to-day stuff, right? Again, you're thrown into the adolescent years where you're thrown in.
Yeah.
You're thrown in. Like you can't, I'm not going to school. Yeah, you are. Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or you can rebel and do something else, right? But
and you have to accept the consequences of that too.
For the most part, it's like, all right, so
it's going to be consequences.
I got to make the best of this, right? I think with this topic at hand of control what you can control is the biggest part of it. As you get older, it's like you can't control everything. You can't control how other people think. But what I see, and I introduced it a little bit like on the political thing because it's just a hot thing right now, right? Again, we're in election year here in the United States. It's the loud, far this way, far that way. Those are the things that you're seeing. And this concept of the silent majority is, I think, that middle school or high school kid that's like, I'm just going to go to school. I'm going to just keep myself. I'm going to just do what I want to do. I want to try to make the best of this. I'm going to do all this stuff. I don't necessarily think that you have to go to the extreme of always vocalizing how you think things are or responding to social media, comments and all that stuff. But I've gotten to the point more recently that I'll use this as kind of a metaphor to life. I'm using the horn on my car way more than I used to. Because I see a bad driver hitting the brakes or just like looking at their phone or whatever else. I'm like, no, fuck it. Like, no, like I'm a little worried that someone's going to pull a gun. Yes, Kunal, I'm worried about it to a point, but I'm also not going to be aggressive and like speed by them and hopefully don't hit me or all that stuff. I'm not going to be the bully on the road, but at the same time, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? Like at some point, it's like, do you feel better about yourself by posting these things on social media? Do you feel better about yourself about bullying people to try to think the way you think? Like, I'm tired of people thinking they can live rent-free in my brain. Like, you want to throw shit out there within reason.
I'm going to hold you accountable.
I'll respond. Yes, I hold you accountable. Hold you accountable to the fact that you're engaging in conversation.
Exactly.
So I'll maybe respond to certain people or private message people or talk to friends that think a certain way. But it's got to get to that point where it's like, I'm not going to just sit there and take it. Same thing with friendships and significant others and family and stuff like that. It's like, I'm not going to just like sit back and let you put your stuff out there. I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to have the tough conversations. And I do, to Nate, you kind of like prioritizing things. Like Kristen, we have tough conversations when they need to happen on both sides.
It's important to be able to do
that.
And
And I value her also, because if I bottle stuff up, I want her to call me out on it. And if she does that, I very carefully call her out on it the best I can. It's no one else's business except for her and I. Friendships, same way. I mean, Nate, you've even called me out on that, especially after some drinks, is that I will absolutely just like confront you on shit when it's like, it's the epitome of like, how's everything going? It's fine. I'm like, all right, what the fuck's going on? Let's go. Come on. Like, enough of this bullshit.
I started to feel ambushed over
here.
like
just like, don't tell me things are fine when they're not. Like, I mean, we've known each other long enough. It's like, we're friends, you're not going to like everything I say. I'm not going to like everything you say. But at some point you have to value the fact that it's like, we're going to go maybe best case scenario, rapid fire of like calculated things. Worst case scenario, we're going to rapid fire, and then we're going to, corporate jargon, we're going to circle back and be like, so a couple days ago when we had that rapid fire thing, emotions were high. Let's have that conversation again, knowing what each other said. It's okay to be raw and realize that sometimes you think you're controlling what you're saying, you're controlling how you're reacting to things. Give it some time, give it some legs. So I wasn't in control.
Let the emotion
let it ruminate.
So other things were happening.
Sober up.
We're fired. Not now. I know. We're like, it's not always alcohol. It's just like emotions are high. We're firing right now. We got the raw shit out. The stuff we didn't want to say, we said it. Now let's talk. Let's really kind of scale it back, because I think that's something that even on your own, when people deal with like anxiety, depression, deal with like these inside thoughts, it's fucking raw. It is so raw to a point that you say things to yourself sometimes that you would never put out there to anyone else. Like, you don't want anyone else to hear your inner thoughts sometimes. You're nodding a lot, Nate. But you have to let that shit out to a point, and that I think that, all right, so it's how I think. Now let's have that conversation. Or I need to have the conversation with someone else, because I want to have control over what I can control, but it's you don't always have it. You don't always have control over your emotions, over your opinions, over your thoughts, over that. But I truly think the best thing to do as we get older is, within reason, maybe a little bit of brake pedal, but keep it on the gas a little bit, that you really do have those conversations. When you, like, let's take it back to even the first part of the podcast. If I didn't like this cigar, I'm gonna have my foot on the gas, but also the brake. But I'm also gonna have, maybe not on a podcast, but I'm gonna tell Kunal, and be like, bro, that cigar burned like shit. Like, Jesus, yeah, brother. No. You have reps coming in asking like, so what do you think? And you're like, really, yeah, it's all right. Yeah, no, I think let me think about it. Let me think about this. I'll let you know if I want to order anything. The better conversations are like, no, not for me. What else do you have? How can we make business happen? But this one, not it. I'm not talking about the Anniversario, right? Because I like the cigar, but it's that honesty, right? It's the genuine, authentic self. It's you want to hear that from someone. I
truly ask for that. I
want to hear,
and I know people are going to.
And sometimes you know there's bullshit out there, and you're like, all right, well, I know you're not going to order this. It's like, God damn it.
Beyond that, I know there's places, people that I'm with, even just like doing events, and hey, I recommended this. I genuinely want to know how they felt about the cigar, good, bad, or otherwise, because especially, you know, working on the retail side, if you never tell me what you dislike, then I'll never assume you dislike it. So then I might
That
keep
guy likes
making
everything, but he doesn't order
right,
anything.
but I keep making recommendations of the same kind, and then you don't like it. I need to know that information. So it's good. I really want to know how people think about things, even as a rep. You know, if you don't like it, I do want to know that. And so I feel like I do a pretty good job of indicating to whether it's, you know, a buyer or a shop or, you know, someone like, no, seriously, you can tell me if you don't like it.
What don't you like about it? Let's
And that's
dive into that.
okay.
That's something I actually started recently doing at work.
Yeah.
Because when you're trying to sell bottles of whether it be wine or liquor to customers, like we do it in the cigar shop as well. We're like, you know, if you like this cigar, take a picture of it, bring it in, and it's like, hey, I like this. What else you got? You know, or hey, you know, you bought these 6 different bottles. You know, if you like them, let me know, and we'll go. I started then telling people, especially people that were buying multiple different products, it's like, let me know what you liked, but also I want you to tell me what you didn't like, because I can work more off of what you don't like than what you do like.
And it doesn't mean that it's a bad product. It doesn't mean that it's a bad trait in a friendship or significant other. Like, you want to know the good and the bad. You want to know.
Where you stand.
I've had customers come in and they're like, yes, I don't like this particular bottle of wine, and I don't sit there and go, really? They sell 1 million cases a year of that one bottle. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? No, that's the wrong way to go. It's like, oh, you don't like that. Your palate, whatever it is about that product you don't like. Now I know what not to recommend, because other products that might be similar to that. Because if you're going off,
a lot of times it does. It gets to the point where, like, I didn't like that. Like, you see the response sometimes. The other side of it is like, really? That's super popular. Like, you start saying, like, we sell a lot of that product. We have repeat buyers. Like, all of a sudden you're discrediting their opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, so you're wrong, and here's why. Everyone
you're
else,
an idiot, and
this is our number one selling product.
Why
didn't care for it? It's like, you should have.
Yeah.
Because it's good.
Yeah, you can't.
So you're wrong.
But
and here's why. And it's like, oh fuck, like that's so bad.
I mean, with whether it be consumables or, for example, you know, let's say, you know, whatever's going on in the world or political, like, that person has a viewpoint on that particular thing. It may not be what everyone else's opinion is, but that's what matters to that person. And you don't necessarily have to, you know, in like friendships or relationships, you don't necessarily have to cater to that person all the time. But okay, if you know, if you have a friend and, you know, you disagree on certain things, okay, you can still hang out with that person. Just maybe you don't have conversations about that. You still find a way to maintain the relationship about other things. Or, you know, you don't sit there and because I remember,
if you have different religious beliefs, you can absolutely have a cigar or whiskey with someone, but you may not go to church or synagogue with them.
There was a cigar.
That's the matter.
There was the owner of a cigar company. Someone had made the comment on because that person had made a post, and this person goes, yeah, I really didn't care for that particular cigar. And the owner of the brand comes back and goes, well, maybe you should just stick to Black and Milds.
It's a very adolescent response.
And I read that, and I was like,
I know who you're talking about. Actually.
I was like, you know what? I'm never going to spend money on that person's product.
Maybe I don't think it is.
Ever. I'm never gonna spend money on them. You know,
I think I'm
now that I'm running a humidor at Carfagna's, that will never be on the shelves. Huh?
Go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Saka?
No, you said
no.
Loud.
No, not that.
Okay.
I thought it was.
No.
Mike, go ahead.
I lost my train of thought there.
Oh, Jesus.
No, but
you're so anxious to
no, there's a couple that just kept, and it went from like one thing to the next.
Yeah.
But you know what though?
No.
It's because Steve, you know me.
I do.
This is what I asked him.
So
I've seen that a lot.
I'm a very just blunt and direct individual. Like I don't have much of a filter. I don't like to sugarcoat things. I just say it like it is. And one of the ways that's made it easier for me to be like that is because I know ahead of time I'm going to please some and irritate others. Just know that the same thing is going to go for you.
Right.
But what I found over the probably last couple of years is the more authentic that I've been, regardless of like whatever I choose to say or feel or whatever the case may be, if I'm 100% authentic, regardless if it goes good or not, at least whoever's on the other side will always be able to trust me.
And they know exactly where you stand.
And they know exactly. So but once you start sugarcoating things, you're not like saying the full truth and everything else like that, that starts to create a level of questioning. So if there's anything further beyond that, and it happens a lot in relationships, sometimes friendships, in work settings, once you get caught not being honest and straightforward, regardless if it's good or bad, because my rule is like, let's say if it's you and me, we get into a disagreement.
Right.
And like you say something or you do something that really upsets me, but I at least know you're being truthful and honest about it. You can always work past it because I know I can trust you. So when the times are good and there's something else happens, I at least know I can trust
authentic.
you.
Yeah, for sure.
But once you start lying or once you're not starting to tell the whole truth, it'll forever start questioning, are you actually ever being honest? And that's a horrible feeling to walk around with.
So on the flip side of that is that if you are absolutely trying to sugarcoat things and all that stuff, and you're like, I don't want to like ruin this relationship, you already did.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the truth will come out, right? It will come out because eventually you or that other party will see through it, or it'll escalate to a point and like, I thought you said this. Yeah, well, I did say that because I didn't want to upset, whatever it might be. Like, it's like, you gotta, to your point, you gotta make your side known, and also knowing that your opinion, your thoughts can evolve based on good, honest conversations.
Yeah.
But if you don't give your side of it truthfully because you didn't want to upset someone, you don't have that tough conversation.
Yeah.
You have no control. Like the control is gone on both parties. No one has control of that situation. Now it's in a free fall that it's just like, all right, what's going to break? One side is going to break at some point because it'll rear its ugly head again, whatever this conflict is of interest, and you won't be able to control it again. You can't control when things are just that volatile.
Yeah.
Because there is a true disagreement. Again, no matter what the arena is, you can skate by, you can bide your time, you can do all that stuff. Dude, time is it's limited.
Not every person is going to fit every role for you, right? When we're talking about relationships, that doesn't just mean with your significant other, right? It's
everything.
But someone may be a friend to a certain point in some aspects, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to fit every possible all-encompassing manner, right? Sometimes you just have those friends where, hey, we're friends in this manner, and that's good enough. We're
cigar friends.
Yeah, you accept that, and you're okay with that, and that's what I want out of it. That's what you want out of it, and we're both good.
Great conversations about cigars and whiskey,
and that's where we want.
You bring up politics, we're not those friends,
right? And sometimes there are people that are, important enough to you, close enough to you that you can have very disagreeing conversations, and it's okay. And some people, you're not, you don't need to do that with every single person in your life.
Don't.
So you can, I've got plenty of friends, that we're really good friends in certain capacity, and both of us or both sides kind of have that understanding that this is where that kind of falls into place, and it doesn't need to be anything more than that. Not every single person needs to know every intimate detail of your life, every understanding of every thought you have on every subject matter, serious, otherwise. And that's okay. I don't know why anyone would really feel like
I'll put this
that
out
they
there.
have to have the most with every single person that's out there.
I'm a Bears fan, and I have Packer friends.
I don't have any Patriot friends. I can tell you that.
Who do you root for?
Bills and Colts. No Patriot friends.
So
I
we have
can tell
different
you.
levels of standards. That's
It's
fine.
really hard working with Terrence Riley. Let me tell you.
The lucky part as being a Bears fan is that we are typically on the losing end of it, just like being a Cubs fan. So it's like, I can be that. They
Yeah,
feel sorry for me a little bit, and I'm just not going to be that hateful.
sure.
Sorry to take it a little lighter.
No,
but
that's how it
it's
should be.
absolutely-
Hey, I don't have any friends of mine that are Patriot fans. My cousin is, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to.
You're not in family.
I don't know if I want to hang out with you anymore,
You
buddy.
invite me to Thanksgiving, and I'm going to say no.
Oh man.
When it comes to peppering it to the point where you're talking about evolving. I
Yeah.
think one of the missing pieces for a lot of people is they're so stuck in their ways. Like you can be brutally and bluntly authentic, but if you're not open-minded to growing as an individual,
Talk on that.
I think that's where a lot of people struggle with too. And I think that's where a lot of like the internal conflicts and stuff come from, or conflicts with other people. Because like one of the things I've always appreciated about you, and you and I have had some,
me?
yeah. So
Okay.
I only have a hand, like less than the amount of fingers on my hand of people who, if I need to have a tough conversation or I need some honest, true advice, like you are one of the few people, because you're always a straight shooter.
So let me have a couple whiskeys. I got you.
It's exactly what we've done,
Post podcast.
you know. But like, and what's
Beyond
awesome,
the BS.
and what's awesome about
Way beyond.
yeah, that's
Part
beyond.
3.
Beyond. So like that's
No, I've gotten better actually. Like just honestly, I've been trying to get better at just that's everyday life.
right.
You want to have a conversation, come to
Right.
the shop or
But-
text me, call me, whatever. I'm gonna
So like, but
I'll do
the point I'm making here is that because I've been so brutally honest and just upfront with not holding anything back, it allows me to have an open mind to different points and different perspectives that you brought to me that I've never really thought of before. Now, if I would have held something back, your answer may have been different. You may have been giving me something that may not have actually helped me to grow and get through whatever that situation is. So that's another reason why, on the flip side, to just be like that in general. But when you can become brutally vulnerable and authentic, regardless of the setting, it allows you to have more of an open mind to different perspectives.
So based on like building off of that is that there are a lot of I think it's very common to go into difficult conversation or as I call it the hard conversations, not trying to win, but you go into the conversation with the element or the aspect of control. You are going in trying to leave the conversation, leave the situation the way you went into it, wanting it to go.
Exactly.
And I think that is what you're talking about, Mike. I think that's what, like right now, the political side of it, when you go into a tough business conversation, you're selling yourself constantly. You're selling what you want out of it. You go in, you want to raise. You go in honestly and be like, hey, I put together everything. I am selling myself. And you're going to say no. Well, I'm going to keep battling you until you say yes. The same thing with like personal relationships, friendships, significant others, all the things we talk about on this is like, I'm going to tell you, Kunal, your job walking in, you say this. I love that about you is that you really, and Nate, you say the same thing about this, about, from your sales standpoint, is I want to know what you like and what you don't like. If you're putting food on the table by selling something, you are absolutely trying to win that person over. So you go into it and you've got this HVC hotcake Maduro, and you're like,
hey, I think it's pretty good.
this is good.
It's
What
pretty good.
What do you think? I don't know. So let me ask you something. And you keep like pushing your agenda on this.
Oh,
That is the same shit of what you're talking about, Mike, is you go in and you don't want to hear, and Nate, you and I've had these conversations over the years, where it's like, you don't, like you've said it, like, I don't know what you want to hear about this, is you go in and it's like, I can tell you my advice if you want to hear it. But if you say you want to hear it and then you just don't respond in a way, and then you come back again, and I'm like, so the last time I told you like what you're doing, like, so what I'm telling you is the same thing I told you last time. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but so what I'm thinking is you're like trying to sell me on that. It's like this is not a conversation. This is like a sales call with your personal life. Like why would you keep coming back to me if all I'm saying is like, dude, like just stop doing that. Well, so I am going to do that, and here's why. Because now I'm looking at it, it's like, nah, yeah, you gotta stop doing that. It's like there's a breakdown. There's no conversation there. It's two monologues happening, and it's just not gonna. No one has control. Like you're trying to control that because you're trying to manipulate the conversation or the situation. Where it's like I'm gonna ignore a lot of things just to make it work for me, and I'm trying to make it work for you, so it works for me.
That's
It's not genuine, right?
So it's something that I've kind of learned from my boss at Carfagna's, because we deal with reps almost every day of the week.
They're the worst.
They're coming in.
They're absolute worst.
They're trying to sell stuff, but you'll notice certain reps have certain patterns, certain behaviors, and there was one particular rep. Young kid, very ambitious, you can tell he has a lot of passion about what he's doing. He's very excited about what he's doing. And he came in, was tasting us on a bunch of different wines, and he left. And I looked at my boss and I was like, is it just me? Or is every time he come in, he thinks every bottle that he puts in front of us is just like the most amazing thing. They have 500 wines in their portfolio,
all the best,
and every single one of them, like he comes in, and I get it. Like
I like the enthusiasm. I love the energy.
Yeah,
right?
Like you don't want to go into an account and sit there and go,
"It's fine.
Yeah, this
You should buy it.
I'm gonna have you drink this or smoke this. I'm gonna
like this.
What about that one? No, that's not.
And there are reps that
I like that strategy too, though.
They're
What
also
about that cigar. No, you don't want that cigar.
There are also reps that because they know
sound like
how,
crazy, but
because they know how our shop is and how it's different than some of the stores that they may do more business with. There are still things in their portfolio that they don't dare bring in and ask us to try and carry, because they know we're not going to carry it, because it's not the identity of our shop. But after this kid left, I actually said, I was like, is it just me, or does he always come across like he thinks that this stuff is just the absolute best? And we taste it, and it's like, yeah, that's not even top 5 of that category of wine that we carry. And he's like, no, that, he goes, and he actually told me, he's like, no, I love the kid's enthusiasm, but because of years of experience doing this, I know how to weed through some of the bullshit.
That's great.
And
that's the old school, like, sell me this pen, sell me a cell phone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's absolutely, you go full go on the offense. Nah, you're
because
I think
there was
starting up again, right? So there's the same thing. You go full offense.
Defense wins championships.
Defense wins championships. But you go full blow on the offense. You're like, oh, this is the greatest wine. This is the greatest cigar. This is the greatest whiskey, and all. Everything's amazing. But as soon as you start asking questions, that's where the real control on both sides, on all sides, that's where you're controlling this situation by asking questions. You can have your walking into the situation intent, but sometimes it's not a fit.
Well,
and that's okay. But if you don't know what the answers to the questions are, you don't know.
Well, and sometimes if you're trying too hard, that other person can see that and they can read through your bullshit, and they're definitely not gonna buy that product.
Yeah.
Because there was another completely different person who's been in the game a while, came in super excited about a product and, was saying certain things about the product. And I then said, and after that person left, I looked at my boss and like, really? They're the only they're the only winery in that area that's doing that. He goes, no, they're not. There's a bunch of them that do that.
I think
that
guy
guy's
should confront them on that.
That guy's sitting there trying to sell me on that. But
if Aganorsa Leaf came in, it's like we are the only people in Nicaragua like that's growing good tobacco.
Oh,
there's some
of the best. I know.
I
know some of the best. Kunal, I'm not trying to.
But literally, if you said that,
we're the only ones worth smoking ever.
Literally, like if you said that, you're dogging everybody else. And
there are companies that go out and make kind of impressions and statements like that. There are companies where how many times you're at an event or you have someone and someone will inevitably ask after the kind of initial either sales pitch or the whatever it is. They go, all right, so what else do you smoke? How many reps go, no, this is all I smoke? I say right away, that is completely disingenuous. There's absolutely no way that is true. And if they're saying that, then they're not being genuine as a human being with you and getting down.
If they are being genuine, they're cheap because they get it for free.
Yeah. Well, and I remember when I first started.
You're not wrong.
Facts right there. Facts.
Well, that reminds me, when I first started as a sales rep for LFD, I was up in Michigan, my second week on the job doing training, and my boss and I were at a store and we were just hanging out outside. He was teaching me some paperwork. We weren't at the store doing anything sales wise. We'd already been there that week. It was just a really cool place to hang out, and a lounge and just talk about business and training and stuff like that. And this other rep came in. And he's like, what are you guys doing here? And my boss, who at the time was the national sales manager for the company, he's like, oh, we were already here this week, just brought him here. We're just hanging out, having a smoke, and I'm just teaching him some paperwork. And he's like, well, I got an event starting in 30 minutes. Yeah, that's cool. We're just hanging out here at this table.
Right.
Like, you're not the only account that calls on this shop, dude. And like, that dude was floored as to like, how dare we be there, as though we're not allowed in that cigar shop. And then he came over and he gave us each a cigar, one of his cigars. Of course. And then we're like, oh, thank you very much. It's great. You guys make great stuff, even though you guys don't actually make it. They make great stuff for you. We didn't say that. We were both thinking it.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, appreciate the cigar. Here, you want one of ours? Nah. Oh, you're one of those. I have never liked that motherfucker. Ever. Every time I have met and hung out with that guy, he's a complete dick. I'll tell you after we're off the air.
It's a bit disingenuous for sure.
Guess what? That made an impression. I don't buy his shit. And he's not even a rep in Ohio anymore. I don't buy his shit.
Yeah. I just, I get it. Well, part of it is, and it's the thing with sales too, right? You always want to be, talking up your brand. You don't really want to push up the competition, so to speak. I think that's a very business kind of mindset that is not necessarily have its place in the cigar world. It's a very small world, relatively, all things considered.
I once knew a sales rep that got fired because someone posted a social media picture of him smoking another brand cigars with the band still on.
Yep. And, I never take offense if I'm hanging out and there's other reps and I give them a cigar and they take the band off. I don't go, oh, how dare you? I get it that they, don't want to be promoting or shouldn't be, another brand. And we all get it, right? Mm-hmm. You can tell when we all get it with each other and we're hanging out and just talking. We understand how the game goes. But at the same time, to be an authentic human being in this world, there's no one that gets a job with a brand because they never smoked anything else or they don't like anything else. That's the only thing that they enjoy. So to say that is, I think, really disingenuous, and it's a little too aggressive in the offensive sales, just nonstop push all the time.
Well, and speaking of authentic, I was going to type a response to a question Ray had, and Steve's like, "No, talking to the mic."
You should.
Bring it up. So if sometimes at work, I end up getting responsible for playing the music in our department. And just because of the vibe being in a wine shop where we have wine bar, people doing wine tastings, like I have Sirius XM, I'll play stuff like yacht rock, classic vinyl, which is a lot of 70s stuff. Just because it's easy listening, it's not super aggressive,
chill,
stuff like that.
chill vibes,
and that's kind of the mood. The first shop I used to work at, I'd bring my phone in and a Bluetooth speaker because we didn't have a fancy speaker system through the store like Tinderbox has, and
it's an old stereo that has an iPod connection.
I know, and
both speakers,
but like
sounds great.
But like I would play a Rat Pack. So like every Saturday we're playing like Rat Pack or some blues, stuff like that. That's what we listen to in the shop because it kind of just sets the mood, it sets the vibe. And well, there was one day where I was scheduled to be in at work on a Thursday at 8 a.m. and we don't open until 10. But we had some deliveries coming at 8, and so I needed to be there. I'm the only one in the department. Most of the lights are out. I'm just putting stuff away, putting stuff on the shelf.
Jamming out some yacht rock.
No, I did not have yacht rock on.
What did you have? Iron Maiden?
Not Iron Maiden, but not far off. I was Godsmack, Rob Zombie, and Rammstein.
How many bottles did you smash?
That's not bottle smashing music. It's not even close.
None.
Their shows.
Rammstein is setting stuff on fire.
Their shows are.
I saw them in concert.
All right.
I would love to see
but I'm sitting there listening. But that's the kind of music I'm listening to. And then before we open, my boss comes in and he gets halfway into the store and he just stops. He just kind of looks up and he's like, "Nate, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?"
I feel that's a fair question.
And he's like, choice of music." I'm like,
"You sound angry."
I'm like, "I like this. This is what I like. I don't play it any other time. I'm the only one here. Now that you're here, I'll disconnect and you put your laptop on and we'll listen to Jimmy Buffett for the next 7 hours. But hey,
still feeling some anger there. Little discontent there.
But no, that was one of those things where it's like there are some people that if you're air quote authentic self in front of them, that can scare some people.
That's okay.
And that's okay.
That's totally okay.
Mike says it's okay. You want to grab the mic and talk to that? You want to talk to that mic, Mike?
That's okay. It's who you are.
Yeah.
People are either accept you or they're not. Like you can't control that. Would you rather be yourself, knowing that you feel good inside being you?
Yeah, I'm not showing up to work, wearing black eyeliner and my hair in a spike and wearing a bunch of studded.
You're saying it because you want to.
Like, no, I don't. Well, no. Believe me, when I went to that Rammstein concert, I stuck out like a sore thumb. I was wearing shorts and a polo shirt.
Dude, I went to a Mudvayne concert one time. I told you that story.
That dude is nuts.
Yeah, I don't know any of them. But,
the lead vocalist, I saw him play with because he's in another band called Hell Yeah, and I actually got to see them.
Sounds like a Kid Rock band. But
it's not. It's but the drummer was Vinnie Paul actually. So I got to see them. I got to see him one time. It was pretty cool. But he is a crazy, high energy, puts on a show kind of guy. So I'm all about Mudvayne.
Went to a concert years ago. Never heard any of their music. Great time.
Yeah.
A lot of stories from that concert.
I bet.
Yeah.
The Rammstein?
No, Mudvayne.
Oh, yeah.
That dude is awesome. He is awesome.
I thought it was they, but yeah.
They are. The lead vocalist is the one I never got to see Mudvayne, but I saw him performing with Hell Yeah. And
I think it's a perfect I guess lead into being authentically yourself. I went into that concert because there were other guys I worked with that wanted, like, "Hey, you should go." I'm like, I'm not doing anything tonight. Let's do it. And then I was there and I was like, all right, I'll get into it a little bit. But I was myself and I pushed off people. I didn't go to the mosh pit.
You didn't get in the pit?
No, one of our guys did.
Yeah,
And
throw
there was
some
a little,
elbows.
Steve would hurt some people.
little
in the
mosh pit going on
Did-
among
Did
us,
you
and I
push people
got
or
into
did
it to
you
a
throw
point.
them?
What's that?
Did you push people or did you throw them?
I pushed them off a little bit, little bows, you know what I mean? Little
Sounds
box out.
Box
But
out
no,
as they went over the guardrail.
no,
Use
no,
your
no.
hips.
Yeah, you gotta get low. No, but it was like I went there. It was like I'm gonna experience it. I'm gonna do this. Not
Right.
I didn't go back to the next Mudvayne concert that came into
You
town.
didn't follow them.
No,
throughout the
it's before
states?
social media, but I didn't do that. But I you can experience things and do things and be yourself doing it. You know what I mean? You don't have to go all in all the time. But going back to this again, let's kind of bring this back full circle to controlling things that you can control. There's a lot that you can control, and
More
it
than you
does
think.
more than you think. It starts with you. It's not always, Nate, you said it earlier, like, you know, there's temptation to be a recluse, you know what I mean? Like, just like turtle up and just keep everything from the outside. I'll give you guys a couple examples here. So the neighbors right here, right? So the lady that was the original owner, she passed away a year ago. They sold the house to an LLC, and all of a sudden there were people that were there working on the house, and they stayed there. Everyone was polite, you know, all this stuff, but all of a sudden it was like weird stuff going on. It wasn't always easy living next door to them. I'm like, well, they don't really own the house, so maybe they're renting the house and all that stuff. And we had some issues with their dog. We had some issues with them parking on grass and stuff like that. And it was like, all right, this is a problem. So finally I started, like, again, I can live with it. I can not speak up. I can't control them. But again, at this point, I started doing it in what I thought a tactful manner. Language barrier. So I used Google Translate, and I took a note over there and like, hey, like, and it said basically like, please stop parking on the shared grass. It's killing my grass and all that stuff. All of a sudden they moved out, and another group moved in, did a Google search, found out the LLC, did this whole thing, and luckily was able to reach someone that through several steps that actually owns the house, and he's the landlord. Very receptive. This is affecting my day-to-day. It's affecting Kristen's day-to-day. It's affecting my dog Tony's day-to-day. It's affecting my neighbor's day-to-day because they're talking to me about it and all this stuff. And it's like, no one really knows what to do with that. And I'm like, all right, so I'm not going to get confrontational, but I'm going to actually put a little bit of my effort into this. So we played phone tag. We talked. I explained my side of it. Very nice people. There's a language barrier. There's an issue, a lot of issues going on. I don't think they realize we live on a cul-de-sac, and I don't think they're respecting the neighborhood, respecting your property. Couple texts back and forth, pictures going back and forth, trash and stuff like that. These are the little wins in life where it's like these things I could have just like sat there and took it. You know, neighbors could take it. You know, Chris and I would get in arguments about this. Like, we should say something, do all this stuff. Got to the point where he's like, hey, do you want to meet? Absolutely. Let's meet. I don't want to fight. I don't want to do all this stuff, right? You know? So Monday, a couple days ago, we met, comes out. I'm explaining. I'm like, yeah, you see here, there's trash here. There's all this stuff. And he explains to me that these are workers. So he bought this house, and he's housing workers for other projects and stuff like that. I'm like, I get it, man. But like, this is a neighborhood. You want to know who your neighbors are. You know, this is it's not the nicest neighborhood in town, but it's like, we respect the cul-de-sac. We respect the neighborhood.
It's
his wheels turning. His wheels are turning. You see trash up front here. And yeah, I think I'm going to move the workers. I'm going to move this like to another property I own that's not necessarily a nicer neighborhood where there's families, you know, where there's other things going on like I'm doing. And what do you think I can rent this house out for? Well, you know, people behind me, they moved to Texas after they bought the house. The younger couple, they have a kid now. They're renting out for like $2,000 a month. $2,000 a month. All right. All right. He's like, give me like 2 or 3 months. I'm gonna get a single family here. I'm gonna rent this house out. We'll see what time will tell, right? You know, but it was just the fact that you took action. I didn't lose my shit and was like threatening him and like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? You don't understand this. It was simply like, I'm controlling what I can control, and I'm actually making my voice known where not to throw any of my neighbors under the bus, but no one was happy with this. It wasn't about who was living there, it was how they were treating this.
Right.
And I knew it was someone bought the house and they're renting it out. I'm not even having to confront the neighbors necessarily. It's literally like, all right, what are the channels I can take to make this better for everyone? Who knows what the future will hold? They could rent it out to a single family. That's even worse. You know, who knows? Yeah. But I feel confident that I now at this day and age that I can actually respectfully with intent, but also respect for that other party, I can have a conversation. I love the fact that he said, hey, you want to meet? I'm like, absolutely. I'm not going to, you know, bow down to, oh, like, I know that you're also a lawyer and you specialize in these types of, absolutely. Let's talk, man. Let's talk. I'm not going to threaten you. I'm not going to do it. Hey, this is what's going on. And I was very fortunate that he was very responsive. He was very receptive to these things. And I think a lot of those situations that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, you don't have to be the aggressor. You don't have to necessarily, you know, you
don't have to be confrontational or a bully.
Being the bigger person a lot of times is not taking it. Sometimes I think being the bigger person is like, let's have this hard conversation. Yep. Let's talk about this. You disagree with me. All right. Now I can disagree with you. But this was a perfect scenario that I actually followed through. He followed through. And hopefully the situation will be better. It's that simple sometimes. You can sit on your hands, you can bottle it up, you can turtle up and all this stuff, no matter what, business, personal relationships, this random situation I've got going on, none of my other neighbors said anything. We started doing the Google searches. We started like, all right, this LLC bought it. Okay, this is the contact. I made the call. I talked to this secretary. She said, all right, I'm going to try to get you in touch with this person. This might be this person. All of a sudden, 2 weeks later, it's like 3 weeks later now, he's out here. We're talking out in the cul-de-sac. Now the other neighbor comes out after I went inside because he took his trash out, and he saw him out there. He's like, hey, I'm the other neighbor, and all this. And then I talked to that neighbor, and he's like, yeah, he was saying this. I was like, that's because that's what I said to him. And all of a sudden, it's like, maybe something will come of it
for the better.
I can't control everyone, but I can at least control my aspect of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Because if I don't, if the only thing I do is sit on my hands, and in that situation, going back as a middle schooler, as a high schooler, I'm like, all right, this is where I live. Like, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to like, we don't want confrontation. We won't do this. You don't have to necessarily just like go in guns a-blazing. All you have to do is, the only control I have on this situation is to stand up for myself, stand up for my fiance, our living situation, and see if we can resolve something. If it didn't go that way, or like if he was confrontational, then I take a different path. Like, you know, I take a different path to, all right, well, I'm not going to go legal on this, but it's like the first step of that was to have a conversation. And thankfully, so far, he's like, I agree with you. You're absolutely right. This is not the type of neighborhood. And I started bringing up like the fact, like, if I want to sell this house, I have to sell it against a house that's got trash all over the place. 12 cars pulling in. It's like, he looked at it, he's like, and I looked at him, I was like, if you want to sell this house at some point, how much money you put in this? I put a lot of money in this house already to get it back up to where it needs to be. I put new granite countertops. I put a bathroom in the basement. I put a new kitchen, and I put a new bath. Yeah. When was the last time you were out here since you bought the house? Haven't been out much. This is what's going on. I'm bringing you up to speed on what the situation is. And that actually, I think, translates to a lot of different things with business, with your job. You're frustrated with it. If you don't say anything about it,
nothing's going to change.
They don't know.
Right.
They may not know. They may not understand it. Your personal relationships, friendships, significant others. If you don't bring it up, they might be going through day to day and they're just thinking that everything's kosher.
Everything's good. Yeah, it's where it needs to be.
It's not great, but we're happy-ish.
It's funny because sometimes being that brutally blunt, authentic individual, you never know what you could do for people at the same time. You never know. Maybe you're that one person. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you just need to speak.
I can barely hear you.
Oh, no, it's like sometimes being that brutally honest, authentic individual, you never know what you could be doing for somebody. You know, sometimes maybe you're that one person that's never talked to someone that way or given it to them straight, and that's what they actually needed. Because maybe there's a lot of people who are surrounded by people by ones that they want to preserve your feelings, they want to sugarcoat, like, oh, it's okay. Like, no, it's not okay. It's not okay. And someone's got to tell you. You know, it sucks to have to do that to people sometimes, but sometimes you have to tell people what they need to hear rather than what they want to hear.
Truth is not always convenient.
Exactly. 100%. And if you're not being that person, like I have a big rule too. It's like, I'd rather have my friends tell it to me straight and call me out when I need to be called warranted out. It's like, rather than sitting back and just watching, you know, I like to think like my intentions are always in the right place for the most part in my life. Like, I like to believe my intentions are right, but if I'm missing something, I'm not going to know unless someone calls me out and tells me.
Well, like if you were going through a self-destructive path,
yeah,
and none of your friends confronted you or called you out on it,
mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you got to the point you were so low that all of a sudden you realized that you were self-destructive, you would then all of a sudden be looking at your friends going, man, what the hell kind of friends do I have that would let me do this to myself?
Yep.
Are they really my friend? How good of friends are they that they would let me do this to myself?
So I gave my closing remarks already a little bit, honestly, with this. Kunal, I'm going to start with you. With the topic of control and with the conversation in hand, leave us with your closing remarks.
Yeah, I think ultimately, you know, you can always control your own actions, your own responses, your own emotions to a certain extent. Sometimes that is a lack of control that, you know, comes back, and if it's a situation you have to reanalyze, all that stuff, right? I mean, we can sit here and talk about it for days, but ultimately when you wake up every day, what are the things that you can control that are applicable in all aspects of what you're doing, whether it's a serious thing, whether it's a mental thing, whether it's your physical tasks that you do. You know, you're in control of how much time do you want to spend, you know, cooking food at home versus eating out, or, you know, taking care of all these odds and ends and errands and house stuff and whatever that, you know, never ends, right? So you always have the ability to control what your mood is going to be to a certain point, how you respond to certain things. If you get too hung up in all the things that are out of your control, then ultimately you are the one that is going to suffer the most as a result of that, because those aren't things that are in your control. So if you focus so heavily on those things, now you're putting all of this effort, all of this mental capacity, all of this emotional capacity into something that you can't do anything about it anyway.
Yeah.
So now you're just giving up that control that you had before any of that kind of stuff happened. So I think the more that you try to grow as a person and you try to take an understanding into that, allow that to kind of shape your approach into things, ultimately things will at least start putting you in the direction that you should be going towards, right? Nothing is an instant overnight sort of thing. It takes time a lot of times for us to either change our habits or the way that we approach things, or as you're in a situation for those things to play out. But if you don't do what is within your grasp and your capacity to do that, then it's never going to work in your favor ultimately, one way or the other.
Well, and I'll say to piggyback off of that, not only controlling what you can, but also control who you allow or what you allow to control you. Because I think there are a lot of people out there that just go with the flow, or whichever way the wind blows, they go that way because it's easy.
It's miserable.
They feel like
existence.
it is miserable to them. Initially, they're like, this the path of least resistance that works for electricity, that does not necessarily work for human fucking beings.
You ever have someone tell you how great a series is on TV or a show to stream, and you're like,
yep,
you never watched it, you need to watch it, and all of a sudden you're like watching it, and then all like 3 days later, like, so where are you? What do you think? You're like, just getting into it, and you're doing your due diligence. You're watching this show, and you are miserable watching this show. Next episode in 5 seconds, you're like, I wish it wasn't. And then you see that person again. You're like, oh, so are you on season 3 yet? You're like, yeah, I'm still on season 1. And like, how are you on season 1? I busy. I got other things going on. You're like, you fucking hate it. Just say it. Yeah. I didn't like it.
I've had
tell me you didn't like it.
I've had shows.
It's okay.
I've had shows where like
it's a real life situation.
It's not that serious. It's not that serious, man. Like you tell someone you don't like a show.
When you said
if it's gonna fracture your relationship, I think it's a weird relationship.
People like when Breaking Bad comes up or The Walking Dead comes up, I'm like, yeah, I never got.
I've never seen either one.
And they're like, how?
What?
You never watched Breaking Bad? That was like
greatest, whatever, 200 hours of television history, and they've never.
Walking Dead. I'm like, they're still
zombies, dude. Whatever. I don't care.
I like a good zombie movie. I don't want to devote 7 years of my life to it.
Yeah.
I've never watched a single episode of Walking Dead.
Me either.
I watched the first one.
But like there are times where like I've thought about like watching the show, but then I had a friend recently. He goes, "Yeah, so this is what happens. Like every season, it follows this pattern." I'm like, yeah, that just seems like it pissed me off. I don't want to watch that.
It's a great reflection of like how people would actually react to that and how people are in life. I'm like, I deal with that every fucking day.
But like when I did,
zombies included.
But I did watch Breaking Bad years ago, and
I didn't mean to take you off.
No, you're fine. But like, there were a lot of those moments where I'm like, all right, what the fuck is going on? Like this started out great, and then we've completely derailed. Like, what the hell's going on?
For me, it was Sons of Anarchy. It was like
never watched that.
I watched the first few seasons. Like, you didn't watch the end of it? I was like, yeah. So the season where I didn't see a motorcycle for 4 episodes, I was done. That was the whole fucking point.
That makes sense.
It's no longer a motorcycle show. This is just a drama.
But like I've had times where I've watched.
I got other shit to do.
Yeah, I've had times where I've watched a show like I'll watch a whole season in a week. And then eventually I get to the point where it takes me like a month to watch a season because I just get to the point where I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care.
I think it's a great metaphor to do things for other people. Honestly, I think that is a great metaphor for you're doing something for someone else that you're like, I respect your opinion. I don't want to disappoint you. And all you do is keep asking about this show that you recommended. And I don't like it. And there are too many people that are like, will not say, it wasn't great.
Oh, I've done that with plenty of movies. People
gotta be honest with yourself.
But no, I also had someone
call it here.
Talking about control and the emotions. Someone said if you're easily insulted, you're easy to control.
It's true.
Because if you let what that means,
welcome
like if you're just constantly going with your emotions or constantly going with wherever the wind blows, you're giving up your control to outside factors.
You're giving up that control that you had.
So control what you can, but also realize you can control what you allow to control you.
Absolutely.
It's like
and on top of that, you don't give your opinion because you're worried about offending other people. It goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a separate Facebook.
I know. I only follow you on the one.
I do. I'm
Corojo,
so bad.
Kunal.
I never like. I honestly don't go back and forth all that much anymore. But
you
yeah,
on
I
the
made.
personal one?
I do have the personal one, but I'm not hardly on it anymore.
The
But
real you.
it is the real me. But I made 2 Facebooks.
It's not real.
It's a filtered version.
It's
It's the professional version.
more professional,
It's not that professional.
less dark humor, more pictures of cigars. that's really about the only shift.
It sounds like my Instagram.
It was interesting when I came into this industry and I was, posting stuff, and it was never really like political or anything
Right.
else, but it was just like the podcast, drinking and stuff like that. It was like, aren't you worried? I was like, I've had that tough conversation with my boss, Brian. Things are good. If I ever overstep my previous career, even working for a cigar shop on my off time, that was a problem for them. Not a good fit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's where that's I
Not a
learned
good
that a
fit
long
for
time ago.
What you need and what you want.
Like it didn't affect me as much with my professional decisions or on any of that, but it was a dagger in my career at that point because like I was making at the time for me in my career more money than I'm making now. It was like it was a lot of money being the GM, but it was like, oh, it's not interfering with this. I just do this as a favor because I go to the cigar shop and the owner was like, hey, you free on Friday nights? And I'm like, yeah, I'm free. And it turned out to be 6 hours a month, like
Right.
every other Friday for like 3 hours. And it came up in a couple meetings, like one-on-ones. Like, are you still doing that? I'm like, yeah. So I'm just trying to help out a friend of mine. I smoke cigars and do that stuff. He's like, oh, all right. And that was a big problem. And it was
Seems
like
bizarre.
it led into other things like the loyalty or whatever. It just started going downhill. And I'm just like, it's crazy. Doing this podcast, doing the social media, putting that out there, putting my personal thing out there and everything intertwining. Like you're talking about having 2 different accounts.
Yeah.
I've got Steve Crane. I've got Tinderbox Easton. I've got BS Cigar Company. I've got Bourbon and BS.
Right.
And they all kind of intertwine at different times. And I'm like, this is it. It should be good.
Mm-hmm.
And I do respect it to a point where I'm not like putting out like, again, political posts or anything like that. But it's like, if I do it on my personal page, it shouldn't affect anything else. If it starts affecting business, if it starts affecting other things, let's have that conversation. Again, tough conversation. Let's have that conversation. Hey, you need to scale back over here.
Right.
Not the, I need to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
You know? You have closing remarks?
Oh, sure. Mine's at the end of the day, the only thing you can control is yourself. How you show up, what you think about, what you choose to do, how you choose to respond. And I'm a very big believer. Like, just be your true, authentic self. I think anything less, you're disrespecting yourself. And for anyone, whether it's on here in general, if you're struggling, if someone who's struggling with feeling suppressed or, again, worried about everyone else's feelings and whatever the case may be, it's like, are you willing to pay the price to be happy with yourself? You only get one life. Tomorrow's never promised. As cheesy as that line always is, it's true. And you are responsible for your own happiness. You are responsible for all of it. Nobody else is. And it's your choice whether you choose to pay the price. And for some people, it's a higher price. Some people, it's lower. For some people, it's an easy road. Some people, it could be a much harder road. It's not about whether or not you can do it. It's, are you willing to pay the price to have internal happiness and peace? And that's my take.
It's great. I think the one thing I'll leave us with is obviously pick your battles. Don't shoot from the hip. Don't just react all the time. But I also will say that I don't think it's unless you want to be the recluse, that you're just on your own, the hermit, right? If you're good with that, that's fine. I I'm not a fan of it, but I am full go on the tough conversations. It's tough to be frustrated with things that are going on around you and to just sit on it.
Just passively let it happen.
It doesn't go away. The best things I can say, and I can see no one's listening at the moment live, but I hope they listen later because some people do. I absolutely value people that give me their opinion. I think that going forward in the society that we're in this country and worldwide, but especially this country, is that the only thing I can give as my experience is that this time around with stuff, I'm not going to preach or just word vomit down people's throats. But if I feel that there is value there, I will respond and I will post and I will give my opinion. My neighbors is a great example that I was giving, is that if something is bothering you, if you think that you can make an impact on your day-to-day life, or at the very least, you can vote when you're given the power to vote, you do that. And I will also put this out there, is that I can't control what other people think. The only thing I can do is encourage people to really put the work in. There's a lot of things going on in this country right now where the media is sadly it's freer. It's not stopping. It's on your phones. You see 10, 15 second or minute bursts of these clips of things that they are manipulating. If you have time, instead of binging a Netflix show, when there is it's available to you, the entire event, watch it. Don't let other people tell you what to think. It's what you can control in your personal side. Is what you control is the input. You can close it out. You can let them give you their 30-second bursts, or you're like, all right, so I saw your 30-second burst. Oh, the 35-minute event is available. The rally is available. I'm not trying to be political to an exponential degree, but it's like, oh, I saw it on the news. They showed me this. I've actually gotten to the point where last night, this might be a little bit of a exposure that I'm a little bit of a sociopath, but I literally was going 5 minutes or so until the commercial break on CNN, and then Fox News, and then 5 to so minutes to the commercial break, and then CNN. And I'm like watching both sides of this thing, and it was entertaining, but it was also like, all right, I'm hearing this side, I'm hearing this side, and I'm like, all right, let me now go back and watch what actually happened and make my own opinion. A lot of man hours there. It's real easy to let other people tell you what to think. If you're in that echo chamber or you're listening to others, whatever it might be.
Positive feedback loop.
But man, it was super interesting. And it's been super interesting to listen to the actual what happened, because it's out there. That's the great part that we're in with this, is that the only thing I can control is how I feel about it, what my opinion is, and I can talk to people that are important to me about it, and I can disagree with you. But if I come back and say, what did you watch? What did you listen to? And I go, I saw this clip. I encourage you. This is my control. I encourage you to watch all of this and then make your opinion. That is lost, in my opinion, on this culture we're in. No one's got time to watch 35 minutes of a
TikTok
interview. If you don't have, I didn't watch the whole thing. It was a half hour. I just saw like clips of it. I'm like, You just told me about season 4 of this show,
It's
and they're
inconsequential.
hour episodes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it's not entertaining. This actually matters. What can you control? Control what your input is. That's it. Sometimes you need to dumb it down and just watch a season on this. So, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to rewatch Friends. I'm going to rewatch season 4 of Lost. Okay, well, just give me a half hour and you watch this. Give me an hour of this. Give me, like, just do this for you because this matters to all of us. And then we can have a conversation. It's out there. It's super easy. And it's frustrating to have conversations with people about they watch like 15-second clips on TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever it is, and it's like, yeah, they're fun, they're easy. I can send you the other
I have a
aspect.
comprehensive opinion on everything that matters because I saw this 15 seconds.
Yeah,
and I'm correct, and everyone else is wrong and dumb. All right,
I will dumb it down to being a Bears fan, and everyone watched what Stephen A. Smith said about the Bears the last 3 seasons, and I'm like, how many Bears games did you watch? 0. I'm like, so I spend my sad life
watching all of it.
drinking beer and watching the Bears. I'll tell you what I think. You don't know what you're talking about, so I do.
Yeah, I guarantee you, Stephen A. Smith doesn't watch all of every game.
Boys, cheers.
Cheers,
Enjoy the
gentlemen.
conversation. See you
Enjoy
next
the
week
company.
with Ryan Ponist. Get out there and smoke some HVC and smoke some Aganorsa Leaf.
Here.
Thank you, Kunal.
You're welcome.